Chapter 572. Black Rabbit told everyone about her community's situation in one breath. Originally, a few years ago, Black Rabbit's community's flag flew all over the East District, but because the existence of the Demon King forced them to participate in the gift competition, they lost their companions, name, and flag. Only Black Rabbit and Ren Russell were left to participate in the gift competition. The remaining 120 members were all children under the age of 10 who couldn't participate in the gift competition. And in this box court world where participating in the gift competition was the standard of survival, the current state of No Name could be said to be facing a life and death crisis. No Name, who was at the bottom, was in urgent need of new companions to save them, so Black Rabbit used the items that she had painstakingly obtained to summon people from the other world. They were 16 Knights Reversal, Jo Yuao, and Hiroi Hikari. Although there was one more now, but because Wuming didn't belong to anyone, this was a good thing for No Name's current state. While she was at it, Black Rabbit also explained to Wuming and the others about the division of different districts and classes. The box court world was divided into 4 districts: East, South, West, and North. There were 2 super huge barriers called the boundary walls that separated them. And the mountain that Wuming saw in the sky before was the intersection of the 2 boundary walls. And at this moment, Wuming and the others and No Name were at the outermost position of the East District of this world. And there was also a saying about the outer gate. In this world, other than the 4 districts of East, South, West, and North, there were also 7 classes. Each class was represented by a corresponding number. The smaller the number, the stronger the strength. And these 7 classes were also divided. 1, 2, 3, and 4 digits were the upper class, 5 digits were the middle class, and 6 and 7 digits were the lower class. Just like where No Name was currently at, it was 2105380 outer gate, the lower class of 7 digits. And according to Black Rabbit, her community, No Name, was undoubtedly the weakest existence in this 7-digit outer gate. Question: Are names and flags important? Jo Yuao raised her hand and asked. After all, in the eyes of normal people, losing a companion was a serious matter, but weren't names and flags randomly made up? Very important. It's quite important. Black Rabbit said excitedly. In this world, the importance of the community's name and flag is probably equivalent to the importance of a country's name and flag in other worlds, Wuming analyzed. Mr. Villo is right. That is a very important existence. Black Rabbit's expression sank again. Question: What is a Demon King? Haruhi Byayoi raised his small hand. Reverse 16 Knights was also quite interested in this term. It sounded like the existence of a big boss. That's an existence that uses the natural disasters of the box court world. No one wants to encounter it. Then, Black Rabbit explained the existence of the Demon King to everyone in detail. There was a special authority in the box court world called the Organizer Authority. The person who had the Organizer Authority could forcefully hold the game of bestowment. The participants could not choose whether they wanted to participate or not. They could directly ignore their wishes and force them to participate. And the existence that had the Organizer Authority was known as the Demon King. In the game of bestowment organized by the organizer, people could choose to participate in the game of bestowment or not. The Demon King, no matter what you choose, forced you to participate in the game of bestowment organized by the Demon King. Once the Demon King initiated the game of bestowment, no one could refuse. They had to participate. If they won, everyone would be happy. Moreover, they could choose to let the defeated Demon King join their community to strengthen their strength. But often, the truth was not that simple. Demon Kings were basically powerful existences. The top target of the Demon Kings was also a community that the Demon King judged could not defeat in the gift competition. After all, the Demon Kings could not challenge a community that was much stronger than them. That would be no different from sending themselves to their deaths. But this also meant that if a community was targeted by the Demon King, there was basically no chance of survival. That was how Black Rabbit's community, No Name, was dragged into the game of bestowment by the Demon King. Then, it was defeated overnight and its companion, name, and flag were taken away. Then, why not disband the current community and form a new one with a name and flag? Reverse 16 Knights asked. After all, according to Black Rabbit's introduction, the game of bestowment did not say that this could not be done. 16 Knights' meaning was very simple. Only by forming a new community with a name and flag could Black Rabbit's No Name survive. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Wu Ming retorted. Establishing a new community, other than having a name and flag, was exactly the same as no name in other aspects. No companions, no talents, and the people in this area knew that this new community was the former No Name. Therefore, it was basically impossible for them to join this new community formed after No Name was disbanded. And according to Wu Ming's guess, the tool to summon people from another world was not something that could be seen casually. Otherwise, Black Rabbit would not have only used it now. Instead, it used it after No Name was invaded by the Demon King. All in all, even if a new community is established, No Name is still No Name. It's just a no name with a layer of skin over it. Its essence will not change. Mr. Villo is right. However, even without those factors, Black Rabbit would not do that. Black Rabbit raised its head and looked at Wu Ming and the others with a firm gaze. Black Rabbit wants to protect everyone's community. Protect this home that will still exist even if it is invaded by the Demon King and abandoned. Protect this home that everyone can see when they return. Black Rabbit said emotionally. Unknowingly, tears once again hung from the corners of its eyes. Black Rabbit does indeed want Mr. Villo, Mr. 16 Knights, Miss Flying Bird, and Miss Yao to join my community. However, because Black Rabbit knows that its community is a weak one, it was actually prepared to hide it from you at the beginning and wait until you join Black Rabbit's community. Black Rabbit said in a low voice. However, I didn't expect Mr. Villo's intelligence to be so high. You actually guessed the information of Black Rabbit's community through indirect reasoning. Mr. 16 Knights, Miss Flying Bird, and Miss Yao also saw some clues through Mr. Villo's method. The four of you are quite outstanding talents. Black Rabbit smiled at the four of them. Even if everyone does not choose to join Black Rabbit's community, Black Rabbit will not be angry and will not have any complaints. After all, Black Rabbit's community is the weakest existence among the 7 digits. Moreover, the invitation letter only brought people from another world. It does not have the ability to force them to join the community. Then, Black Rabbit lowered its head and did not speak again. At the same time, Wu Ming and the others did not make a sound. Just like that, the 5 of them fell into silence. Then, Black Rabbit will leave first. Black Rabbit, who lowered its head, stood up without lifting its head, turned around, and walked away. Thinking about it, after knowing that the community that was about to join was the weakest, No Name, that did not even have a name and flag, who would want to join? Probably no normal person would choose to join such a community. A few teardrops fell from Black Rabbit's cheeks. As Black Rabbit walked, the teardrops fell to the ground. However, Wu Ming and the others who saw this scene smiled helplessly. The 4 of them looked at each other. Jiu Yufei and Hiroi Hiroyuki chose to give the right to speak to Wu Ming and 16 Knights, who were the boys with the loudest voices. Then, 16 Knights gave Wu Ming a look that said, "You were the first to discover Black Rabbit's purpose," and signaled to give the right to speak. Wu Ming smiled helplessly, then responded to 16 Knights and the others with a look that said, "Leave it to me." Then, Wu Ming spoke to the Black Rabbit who was walking away. "Please wait a moment, Black Rabbit, there is something I need to explain." After hearing Wu Ming's voice, Black Rabbit was stunned at first, then raised its hand to wipe its tears and turned around. Excuse me, Willow-san, is there anything else you want to say? Black Rabbit smiled happily at Wu Ming and the others. Although Wu Ming guessed that Black Rabbit might have experience as a host, Wu Ming had to admit that the smile at this moment was really ugly. People who showed this fake and forced smile to make themselves happy were not happy at all. First, stop this smile, Black Rabbit. Wu Ming said bluntly or mercilessly to Black Rabbit. This made Black Rabbit's body tremble, and its smile also froze. Listen carefully, Black Rabbit. Generally speaking, normal people can't join your community. Wu Ming said bluntly as if he was mocking Black Rabbit. Like dark clouds, Wu Ming's words covered Black Rabbit's blue sky, causing Black Rabbit's smile to disappear, and its eyes to become slightly moist. However, isn't such a community the most suitable for problem children? Wu Ming's words were like clouds parting, allowing Black Rabbit to see the blue sky again. In other words, Black Rabbit said with uncertainty, I've decided to join your community, this time I'm not lying. Wu Ming smiled slightly. At this moment, Wu Ming's smile was like the sun after parting the clouds, illuminating Black Rabbit's heart. Everyone. Thank you very much. This time, Black Rabbit showed a smile of indecent ceremony, but it was an unusually pure and beautiful smile that came from the bottom of its heart. As if to highlight this moment, the sun became brighter, reflecting this beautiful scene. Chapter 573. The Black Rabbit was quite happy at this moment, but someone had to come out to tease the Black Rabbit at this time. Wait a moment, Black Rabbit. The one who wants to join is just a little brother. A frivolous smile appeared on 16 Knight's face. Indeed, I didn't say that I wanted to join. Jiu Fei now looked at Black Rabbit with a teasing gaze. However, the person he hated the most was still Haruhibu Yaichi. I don't have any objections, but since that's the case, I'll just follow the two of them. Hearing the words of these three problem children, Black Rabbit was stunned on the spot, and its bright smile froze. Everyone must be joking. At this moment, Black Rabbit did not know what expression he should use to face these problematic children. Yeah, I was just kidding. Very clearly, Black Rabbit was played again. You problematic children. Although the place where Wu Ming and the others were summoned was the 2105380 Outer Gate in name, there was only a large forest there. No Name was once the largest community in the East District, so it naturally had a large piece of land. Obviously, No Name wasn't here, because if they wanted to get to No Name, they would have to walk for a while. On the way to the outer gate of 2105380, Black Rabbit, who was leading the way, dropped its shoulders weakly. Seriously, the problem child is definitely a terrifying existence comparable to the Demon King. The Black Rabbit complained weakly. The Black Rabbit was almost traumatized by the problem child it summoned. After seeing the 2105380 outer gate in front of his eyes, as well as the current leader of No Name, Ren Russell, waiting in front of the gate, Black Rabbit's mood became a lot more cheerful. Young Master Ren, I've brought the newcomer back. Black Rabbit excitedly waved at Ren Russell, who was waiting in front of the city gate, and shouted loudly. After seeing Black Rabbit and hearing Black Rabbit's words, Ren's mood value obviously rose a lot. After that, Ren nodded and walked towards Black Rabbit. Black Rabbit, welcome back. After that, Ren asked the Black Rabbit as if he was confirming something. Are these two ladies the new members? Yes, these four are. Black Rabbit's voice stopped abruptly. Originally, Black Rabbit turned around and spread out his arms, preparing to introduce Wu Ming and the other three. As soon as Black Rabbit turned around, he realized that only Jiao Osaka and Harui Bia were left behind. Wu Ming and 16 Knights had already disappeared. Black Rabbit was so scared that her face turned pale, and her hair showed signs of changing color. Where did Mr. Villo and Mr. 16 Knights disappear? Black Rabbit asked Kumo Osaka and Kasuga Hibakushi excitedly. 16th Eventide said that he wanted to see World's End. So, he left on his own, Jiu Fei now kindly replied. What about Mr. Villo? The Black Rabbit asked again. As for Vero, because 16 Knights said, we still have a fight to fight, he was dragged away by 16 Knights, Haruai Hiroyuki said to Black Rabbit Mamro in a serious tone. Just as Black Rabbit was about to ask again, Jiu Fei now spoke first, interrupting Black Rabbit. Right, Mr. Villo said something else. Then, Haruai Hiroyuki mimicked Wu Ming's tone as if he was agreeing to Jiu Fei Niao's words. Tell Black Rabbit that 16th Eventide and I will be back soon. Don't worry, I'm here. You don't have to worry about 16th Eventide. Those were the Villo's last words. How can you not have to worry? In Black Rabbit's opinion, Wu Ming was also a problematic child, just slightly less dangerous than 16th Eventide. However, it still did not make her feel at ease. Then, Black Rabbit lowered her head with a gloomy face. Young Master Ren, please take care of Miss Osaka and Miss Hiroyuki. Black Rabbit will be back soon. After saying that, Black Rabbit's blue hair instantly turned pink. Then, Black Rabbit took a step back and kicked off the ground. Black Rabbit could directly jump out. Then, she quickly skipped away. Looks like Black Rabbit is angry. Haruai Hiroyuki looked at the pink hair floating behind Black Rabbit and nodded. But it has to be said, Black Rabbit really did look like a rabbit at this moment. The jumping ability of Hakata's rabbits is not bad. Jiu Fei now looked at Black Rabbit who disappeared into the distance and muttered. Then, please follow me. I'll show you around here. Ren said somewhat cautiously. Haruai Hiroyuki and Jiu Fei now looked at Ren, who was the leader of the community in name, as if thinking about something. It was as if they were judging him as a leader, which made Ren feel even more nervous. However, Jiu Fei Niao and Haruai Hiroyuki were not judging Ren, but surprised that Ren was also a child. Although Black Rabbit said that only she and Ren Russell, who was the leader of the community, had the ability to participate in the gift competition, Black Rabbit did not specify Ren Russell's age. Ren Russell was more than 10 years old, but he was probably only 11 or 12 years old. Letting a child in his teens become the leader of the community, no name, was really at the end of the road. That. Miss Hiroyuki, is there any other problem? Ren mustered up his courage and asked. Only then did Jiu Fei Niao and Haruai Hiroyuki recover. After all, staring at someone was very rude. Sorry for being rude. Then, Ren-kun, let's go. After Jiu Fei Niao said that, Haruai Hiroyuki nodded his head. Ren Russell, who was feeling extremely nervous, breathed a sigh of relief. Then, Ren led Jiu Fei Niao and Haruai Hiroyuki through the city gate. On the other side, reverse 16 Knights and Wu Ming, one on the ground and one on the sky, were moving towards the east at an extremely fast speed. Behind reverse 16 Knights was a cloud of dust that was stirred up by the running. The reason for that was because reverse 16 Knights and Wu Ming had made a bet to see who could reach World's End first. Originally, Wu Ming was worried that 16 Knights would not be able to reach World's End before nightfall. However, don't worry about me, little brother. I am very strong. Be careful not to fall, reverse 16 Knights said as he cast a provocative look at Wu Ming. After hearing those words from reverse 16 Knights, Wu Ming realized that the person before him was not an ordinary person. However, reverse 16 Knights had not displayed any special abilities in front of Wu Ming. He had only displayed his intellect. Thus, Wu Ming had subconsciously assumed that reverse 16 Knights was a wise man type of character. Reverse 16 Knights' words did not sound like a bluff at all. Thus, Wu Ming began guessing reverse 16 Knights' abilities. However, it was better to see it for himself. Since the other party was so confident, Wu Ming made up his mind. I will not go easy on you, delinquent 16th Knights. As a result, Wu Ming used his mental power to fly up and flew a short distance in an instant. Afterward, Wu Ming turned back with the idea of seeing reverse 16 Knights' abilities. As a result, Wu Ming saw that reverse 16 Knights had caught up with him like an ordinary person running. This caused Wu Ming to be greatly shocked. Then, the scene from before appeared. Wu Ming and reverse 16 Knights, one in the sky and one on the ground, were moving toward the east at almost the same speed. Now, Wu Ming knew that reverse 16 Knights had caught up with Wu Ming by running on the ground. There was no special ability. Could it be an ability like physical enhancement? Wu Ming guessed. However, Wu Ming felt that it was not that simple. Therefore, Wu Ming increased his flying speed by a lot. The air seemed to explode, producing an explosive sound. That was a sonic boom. By a conservative estimate, Wu Ming's current flying speed was at least 10 kilometers per second. Even so, reverse 16 Knights was still able to easily catch up with Wu Ming. In fact, he had even surpassed Wu Ming to arrive before Wu Ming. What is it, little bro? Is that all you have? If you continue like this, you will lose, reverse 16 Knight said without turning back. Additionally, he increased his flying speed. Wu Ming looked ahead. It was a miraculous natural scene. Countless trees had stopped growing before him. Instead, they were replaced by a large body of water. There was a cliff that was higher than Wu Ming and reverse 16 Knights. A waterfall that was more spectacular than any other waterfall flowed down from the cliff. The waterfall flowed down from the cliff into a bottomless abyss. That was probably world's end. Indeed, if Wu Ming were to continue like this, he would lose this little bet. How can that be all you have? Wu Ming revealed a smile. Due to reverse 16 Knights' provocation. In an instant, Wu Ming's flying speed increased by another notch. Wu Ming exerted a force through the air and the air behind Wu Ming was repelled, creating a temporary vacuum. Instantly, Wu Ming and reverse 16 Knights' figures smashed into the body of water. Boom. Chapter 574. Dong. Due to their collision, a large splash of water was sent flying up into the sky, creating a scene akin to rain that did not cease for a long time. Combined with the sun hanging high up in the sky, it created a rare scene of a sunshower. Wu Ming and reverse 16 Knights stood up, their bodies drenched with water. They then looked around. Although they were in a body of water, the water here was very shallow, less than half a meter deep. Thus, the two of them were standing in the half-meter deep water. Is this world's end? It's really spectacular. 16 Knights said happily, not caring about her wet body. Wu Ming turned to look at reverse 16 Knights, the smile on his face remaining pure. This time, however, the smile on reverse 16 Knights' face was one of excitement and joy. It gave Wu Ming a feeling that he had come to the right world. Due to that, Wu Ming's vexed feelings of having to search for his main body in this incomparably large box court world eased. It is indeed spectacular. Although I have been to many worlds, this is my first time seeing something like this. Wu Ming stretched his hand out to feel the coolness brought about by the artificial rain. Wu Ming relaxed. The water here was exceptionally cool. Oh, little brother, you still have that kind of ability. 16 Knights looked at Wu Ming with a chuckle. I am not a human, after all. It is not surprising for me to have some special abilities. Wu Ming smiled. Oh, is that so? Looks like this bet ends in a tie between me and this non-human little brother. Next, reverse 16 Knights revealed a particularly brutal smile. Now that you've seen World's End, let us begin our fight here. Next, reverse 16 Knights charged at Wu Ming, creating a large splash of water and countless pebbles. Dong! It was an ordinary stomp. And yet, an explosive sound rang out. Then, the human, known as the 16 Knights in reverse, met the ghost, known as Cyrus Ed, at the end of the world. At the same time, not far away from World's End, a pink-haired bunny girl, or rather, Miss Black Bunny, who was having a headache because of Mr. Problem Child, was skipping her way towards World's End. Seriously, where did those two problem children go? Black Rabbit complained helplessly. Although the outer gate of 2105380 was very close to World's End, do not forget, the surface area of this world was very big. Although the outer gate of 2105380 was the closest to World's End, it was still not a place that ordinary people could reach. To put it simply, there were 2 points. Firstly, it was too far away. As mentioned before, the box court world was very big. The 7-digit outer sect was also quite a distance away from the end of the world. Secondly, danger. Due to the area between the 7-digit number of outer disciples and World's End, no one would care even if a robbery or murder were to occur there. After all, Hakuda's laws were only effective for those in the upper 7 digits. Of course, if you robbed some big shot, they wouldn't mind teaching you a lesson and destroying your corpse. No, it would be more accurate to say that even if you were in the lower 7 digits, as long as no evidence of your crime could be found, nothing could be done about it. Not being found out was not the same as committing a crime. That was not a joke. Naturally, if you were to be caught committing a crime, your punishment would be much harsher compared to ordinary criminals. However, such a thing was unlikely to happen here. That was because there were many trial grounds for Asura gods and Buddhas here. That was another way of saying danger. The gift competition for the trial held by the Asura gods and Buddhas. That was a death game where a moment of carelessness could cost you your life. Black Rabbit was precisely that. If those Asura gods and Buddha's flowery words deceived us into participating in the gift competition, that would be terrible. Black Rabbit said worriedly as she moved forward. As everyone knew, many Asura gods and Buddhas, due to having lived for too long, liked to stir up trouble when they had nothing better to do. Thus, in the face of new faces who were unfamiliar with the rules, those Asura gods and Buddhas would tempt them. At present, Black Rabbit had almost reached the edge of World's End. I remember that water gods' trial grounds are in front of us. I hope they are not there, Black Rabbit said expectantly. Then, a giant wave and a series of roars that soared into the sky completely shattered Black Rabbit's hopes. No. It can't be, Black Rabbit was stunned for a moment. Then, she quickly reacted and dashed in the direction of the wave. In just a few seconds, Black Rabbit had passed through the forest. The waters of World's End appeared in front of Black Rabbit, including the figures of Wooming and reverse 16 Knights who were soaked in the rainwater formed by the waves, and in between the two of them, the figure of a huge unconscious whitewater snake. Hey! Hey hey hey! Faced with such a scene, Black Rabbit was stunned at first. Then, she let out a startled cry. Yo, isn't this Black Rabbit? Why did you change color? Reverse 16 Knights asked without any self-awareness. Black Rabbit, you must have run around without permission. That's why your hair changed color, 16 Knights. Wooming waved his hand with an I am quite self-aware expression. This clearly has something to do with Mr. Villo. How can Mr. Villo say something like that? Black Rabbit was so infuriated by the two of them that she bellowed. Ma, it's all 16 Knights' fault. Wooming instantly pushed the blame onto reverse 16 Knights. Hey little brother, when I pulled you away, didn't you agree as well? We are rivals. We have to bear the responsibility together. Despite saying that, the smile on reverse 16 Knights' face did not diminish. It did not match his words at all. By the way, what are you two doing here? Black Rabbit said, giving up on herself. Isn't it obvious? Come with me to World's End and have a look. While you're at it, let's have an exciting fight. 16 Nights Reversal smiled at Black Rabbit. Right. That's right. Black Rabbit suddenly reacted after hearing 16 Nights' words. This is World's End's water god, right? Did you too defeat the water god? Black Rabbit pointed at the unconscious white water snake and said in disbelief. Ah. Water god. Is it this snake? 16 Nights laughed in disbelief. Unexpectedly, this big white snake was actually a water god. How interesting. After 16 Nights and I arrived at World's End, we enjoyed the scenery. Then, 16 Nights began sparring with me, Wu-Ming began explaining. Next, reverse 16 Nights continued Wu-Ming's words. Then, this fellow suddenly charged out while little brother and I were fighting. It said that we had disturbed its slumber and that it had to participate in its gift competition to undergo its trial. Next, reverse 16 Nights revealed a pure and wicked smile. Then, this guy was defeated by me and my brother. Black Rabbit was pleasantly surprised by reverse 16 Nights' answer. Although there were only two of them, their combined strength had allowed them to defeat the water god. This power allowed Black Rabbit to see the future of their no name. However, it was not that Black Rabbit did not believe it. It was also not that Black Rabbit discriminated against humans. Rather, could two mere humans really defeat the water god of World's End, who possessed a divine spark? Seeing the puzzled look on Black Rabbit's face, Wu-Ming began explaining to Black Rabbit. Don't listen to 16 Nights' nonsense, Black Rabbit. Black Rabbit patted its chest and breathed a sigh of relief. As expected, they had used some method to defeat the water god. This was in line with the theory of humans using their wits to defeat their enemies. It was this snake that broke into the space between 16 Nights and me. Before it could finish its sentence, it was accidentally knocked out by our fists. Sigh, Black Rabbit was dumbfounded. Next, a cry of shock reverberated through the sky once more. Sigh, sigh, sigh. Chapter 575. The artificial rain in the World's End did not last for long. After the rain stopped, a beautiful rainbow appeared in the World's End. However, Wu-Ming, reverse 16 Nights and Black Rabbit did not see this beautiful scene. On the way back to the outer gate of World 2105380, Black Rabbit held onto a seedling of an unknown plant with both hands and skipped ahead. It was clear that Black Rabbit was in a good mood. This time, Wu-Ming and reverse 16 Nights did not disappear. Instead, they obediently followed behind Black Rabbit. Why? After all, with Black Rabbit around, the fight between Wu-Ming and reverse 16 Nights ended without a conclusion. Not long after Wu-Ming and reverse 16 Nights began their fight, the giant snake that Black Rabbit addressed as the water god appeared to disturb them. Then, Black Rabbit arrived as well. After being disturbed time and time again, reverse 16 Nights lost the will to fight with Wu-Ming. In the end, reverse 16 Nights and Wu-Ming agreed to continue if there was an opportunity. Wu-Ming had no choice but to agree. Heaven had taken pity on him. He did not want to fight with reverse 16 Nights anymore. As an origin dragon that lived in the Great Origin, Wu-Ming's physical strength was not weak. He did not have to worry about fighting with a human. That said, the human was not ordinary at all. Due to the fact that Wu-Ming was only in his spiritual form, his physical strength was far from comparable to that of an origin dragon. Still, Wu-Ming's physical strength was enough for most situations. However, in the face of reverse 16 Nights' punch, Wu-Ming utilized the Lune Rune and Yggdrasil's enhancement magic. Wu-Ming, who had personally fought reverse 16 Nights, could tell that reverse 16 Nights was a monster in human skin. After admiring the scenery in the World's End, reverse 16 Nights attacked Wu-Ming. Instantly, Wu-Ming exchanged a punch with reverse 16 Nights. As a result, 16 Nights and Wu-Ming both took a few steps back. It could be said that if Wu-Ming hadn't reacted in time before the force of Wu-Ming's reverse 16 Nights fist reached his body, Wu-Ming might have been sent flying. Wu Ming immediately judged that the pure physical strength of his spiritual body was no match for the 16 Nights reversal. Not bad, little brother. Although I went easy on you, you're the first person to take my fist and not die. This was what 16th Night had said back then with great excitement. Wu Ming felt a little helpless. She sounded as if 16th Night often beat people to death. Wu Ming could tell from 16 Night's aura and moves that 16 Nights had not killed anyone. However, this might have something to do with the fact that he was in an ordinary world. Even so, Wu Ming would not show mercy. On the contrary, Wu Ming had to use more strength. Otherwise, he would really be beaten to death by the opponent's strange strength. In the end, because of a series of accidents, the fight between the two was forced to end. However, Wu Ming always felt that this young man was not that simple. In addition to his extraordinary physical strength, he must have other abilities. Following behind Black Rabbit, Wu Ming, who was walking side by side with 16 Nights reversal, quietly glanced at 16 Nights reversal and kept thinking. Then, 16 Nights reversal noticed Wu Ming's gaze and smiled at Wu Ming, full of fighting spirit. However, it's not like I don't have any hidden strength. Wu Ming returned the same smile as 16 Nights reversal. Fortunately, Black Rabbit's mind was immersed in the sapling in her hand and did not notice the smile of Wu Ming and 16 Nights reversal. Otherwise, she would have lectured them again. He with this water tree sapling, we don't have to go to other communities to buy water anymore. We finally have our own water source, Black Rabbit said happily. However, Wu Ming frowned when he heard this. No Name had fallen so low that they had to buy their daily water from other communities. Then Wu Ming pondered, what kind of existence was the Demon King that attacked No Name to be able to turn the largest community in the East District into this in one night? After 16 Nights saw Wu Ming's pondering eyes, he instantly understood what Wu Ming was thinking. Then, as if he thought of something, 16 Nights reversal smiled. Little brother, are you interested in taking back the name and flag of No Name from the Demon King's hands? Wu Ming looked at 16 Nights reversal and smiled. Of course I'm interested, taking back the flag and name from the Demon King's hands is a must. Wu Ming said solemnly. Since Wu Ming decided to join No Name, then he would work hard for No Name and not temporarily join an organization to find his original body in this world. However, Wu Ming and 16 Nights reversal's words made Black Rabbit tremble and shiver. You two problem children. Don't cause any more trouble. Black Rabbit looked at Wu Ming and 16 Nights reversal helplessly and tried to persuade them. Ma, let's talk about this later when we have the chance. Wu Ming smiled at 16 Nights reversal. 16 Nights reversal spread out his hands and shrugged his shoulders. Wu Ming was right. After all, even if they talked about it now, they would not be able to find the Demon King that attacked No Name a few years ago. But then again, Mr. Villo and Mr. 16 Nights do not look like humans at all. Black Rabbit complained and looked at Wu Ming and 16 Nights reversal as though they were monsters. Have you ever seen a human who could defeat a water god that had obtained a quintessence and knock the water god unconscious with one punch? At any rate, Black Rabbit had never seen one in his 200+ years of life. In response to Black Rabbit's words, Wu Ming also looked at 16 Nights reversal as though he was looking at a monster. It was not surprising that Wu Ming could defeat the snake. After all, the spirit body of an origin dragon was quite powerful. However, for a pure human like 16 Nights reversal to be able to defeat a water god that had obtained a quintessence was quite shocking. Back in World's End, Black Rabbit had told Wu Ming and 16 Nights reversal about the use of a quintessence. The quintessence of the quintessence world was not the mythical position that Wu Ming and 16 Nights reversal believed that gods occupied. It was also not a natural god. Instead, it was a powerful gift that could allow an individual to evolve to the highest level of that species. Simply put, if a quintessence was given to an ordinary snake, the snake would become a gigantic snake god. If a quintessence was given to an ordinary human, the human would become an immortal. If a quintessence was given to a ghost, the ghost would become a ghost god. Additionally, the quintessence also had the ability to strengthen other gifts. In short, it was a very powerful ability. However, the quintessence was not something that could be given to just anyone. Only those Asura gods and Buddhas or those with special abilities could give others the quintessence. Additionally, it did not mean that those who were given a quintessence would become invincible. Take the knocked-out snake for example. As Wu Ming had not come into contact with the people of this world, he was unable to determine how strong the other party was. However, according to the definition of the upper, middle, and lower levels of the quintessence world, Wu Ming speculated that the snake god could not exceed the middle level, which was a 5-digit number. If such a being could be in existence of the upper level, then the martial strength of this world was too low. It was impossible no matter how he thought about it. Wu Ming pondered and shook his head. 16 Nights Reversal did not notice Wu Ming's absent-mindedness. He had the expression of a human as he looked at Black Rabbit with a smile. "Hey, Black Rabbit, I'm different from this ghost. I'm a pure human." Mr. 16 Nights is really a human. Black Rabbit was a little surprised. After all, an existence with such power was actually a human. He should be surprised no matter what. Then, Black Rabbit noticed something wrong. Wait a minute, Mr. Villo is actually a ghost. Black Rabbit looked at Wu Ming in shock. Wu Ming nodded. 16 Nights is right. You can also understand that I'm a ghost. As he spoke, Wu Ming turned his body into a spirit body. Then, he reappeared and displayed the ghost's illusory form through spirit body. He's really a ghost. Black Rabbit said in a daze. As a rabbit who had lived for more than 200 years, Black Rabbit still had some knowledge about ghosts. There was a large community related to ghosts in the North District. Ghosts were the same as spirit bodies. They were illusory spirit bodies that were separated from the physical body. Although Wu Ming's spirit body was essentially the same as the heroic spirits in the Valhalla, little brother, can you still disappear? That's interesting. You really are a ghost. 16 Nights Reversal looked at Wu Ming with interest. This once again triggered 16 Nights Reversal's problematic child nature. Then, the Black Rabbit angrily roared at Reverse 16 Nights. "Mr. Problematic Child, please stop causing trouble." Yes, I understand." 16 Nights Reversal smiled and nodded as if he had succeeded in teasing Black Rabbit. "Is this the outer gate of 2105380? Wu Ming, who was not looking ahead, suddenly spoke. Then, Black Rabbit and 16 Nights Reversal also looked ahead. It was indeed the place where Black Rabbit and Ren Russell met before. Phew, we're finally here. Black Rabbit breathed a sigh of relief. She was already troubled by the 2 problematic children behind her. Now, she was finally free. However, Black Rabbit forgot that 2 problematic children had already entered the city, and they were led by the immature leader, Ren. Chapter 576. We are going to have a gift match with Forsgaro. The kind where both sides are betting everything. And they are the ones who started it. Wah, 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 wah. What is going on? Black Rabbit brought Wu Ming and 16 Nights into the city gate and found Ren, Jiomotu, and Kasuga Hibakushi sitting in an outdoor cafe. Then, the 3 of them told him that they were going to have a gift match with Forsgaro. Black Rabbit looked like he was about to collapse when he heard the news. 16 Nights, on the other hand, had an interesting expression. Wu Ming, on the other hand, was deep in thought. Then, as the leader, Ren told him what happened. Originally, Ren brought Jiomotu and Kasuga Hibakushi to the cafe and waited for Black Rabbit to look for Wu Ming and 16 Nights. Although life in No Name was tight, the cafe here was very friendly, and no matter how tight life in the community was, it could not be said. In the end, when the three of them sat down and ordered, a tall man named Guard Gasper, the leader of the Forsgaro community, suddenly sat down at Jiomotu and the other two seats. He wanted me, Kasuga Hibikushi, and Black Rabbit to join his community, and he even mocked the situation with no name. He was just like a clown. Jiomotu held her forehead with one hand and had an "I'm about to be laughed at" look. Then, something must have happened, and that's why you guys decided to have a gift match with Forsgaro. Wuming asked with his arms crossed. Although Jiomotu and Kasuga Hibikushi were problematic children, they were not people who did not know the gravity of the situation. Because he was very angry, he did not consider the consequences of finding trouble, and he did not consider the consequences at all. Jiomotu and Kasuga Hibikushi calmly said something that made people speechless. "Alright, problematic children are still problematic children, you two big idiots." Such an answer made Black Rabbit pull out a folding fan from out of nowhere and hit the two men's heads. Although there were indeed two problematic children, the more important reason was the orc named Guard Gasper. "Thanks to Miss Flying Bird's grace, we've learned some things from Guard," Rin continued, but his expression did not look too good. "Due to the other party's bragging, my community is the community that has continuously won the gift competition with the other communities by betting on their flags." Zhou Yuanfei's words made Zhou Yuanfei suspicious. After all, Wuming had also explained Black Rabbit's words in layman's terms. The world community's flag was as important as the national flag. Logically speaking, it was unlikely that there would be consecutive flag betting competitions. Then, Distant Bird used his grace to control the other party, forcing him to reveal the truth. "My ability has the effect of completely dominating the opponent," Zhou Yufei said. It was through this effect that everyone learned about Guard's methods. By secretly capturing the old, weak, women, and children of the other community, and then threatening the other community to enter the gift competition with the flag bet. Then, by threatening the other community, he won and took the other community into the Forsgaro. Oh, so to say, Guard can be said to be the largest community in this 2105380 outer sect area. After 16 Knights finished speaking, he looked at Wuming. Wuming naturally understood what 16 Knights meant, so he followed 16 Knights' explanation. Then, Guard must have used some method to control the other communities, so that such a large community can be maintained without chaos. Then, Wuming showed a disdainful expression. According to what Guard did, he probably captured some children who were the future of the other communities and used them as hostages to control the other communities. It couldn't be said that Wuming knew a lot, because if Wuming was on Guard's side, he would do the same thing. However, Wuming would never become someone like Guard. Even if Wuming became the villain, Guard's methods would still make Wuming despise Wuming. Unfortunately, you only guessed half of it right. Distant Bird shook his head. Through Distant Bird's grace of domination, Guard said what he did, and it was indeed the same as what Wuming said, but those children have been killed by Guard, and even their bodies. Hiruai Toshi was halfway through his sentence, and he couldn't continue. Black Rabbit covered her mouth in disbelief, and 16 Knights frowned slightly. Naturally, Jutaka Renwa and Hiruai Hiroyuki already knew about it. Black Rabbit, Wuming and 16 Knights reversal were no fools either. They naturally knew what would happen to a corpse in the hands of a beast man like Guard. Phew, Wuming closed his eyes and breathed a sigh of relief. It wasn't that Wuming didn't have any lives on his hands, nor was he a saint, nor was he unable to accept the deaths of those children. But Wuming was really angry with Guard's inhumane approach. The most important reason why Wuming liked humans was that humans had a kind nature. Sure enough, even if they transformed into human form, a beast was still a beast. To be honest, I have the urge to destroy Forsgaro. Although Wuming didn't burst out any amazing momentum, the murderous intent in his eyes was real. However, no one reacted to Wuming's murderous intent because Guard's approach was too heartless. But fortunately, we have Mr. 16 Knights and Mr. Villo on our side. It should be more than enough to deal with Guard. Black Rabbit patted her chest and sighed in relief. Ha! What are you talking about? They are the ones who are looking for trouble, it has nothing to do with me. 16 Nights spread her hands, indicating that she wouldn't participate. Black Rabbit was confused again. Ah, you're quite sensible. What about you, Willow? Yuasuke didn't care about Black Rabbit's reaction and looked at Wuming. Wuming thought for a moment, then shook his head. If that's the case, you guys should participate in this gift competition. Wuming had his own reasons for doing so. Although Wuming knew that Guard must be very weak to him, being played around by the two girls, he decided not to make a move for the time being since it was his first time here. Instead, he decided to observe the situation for the time being. He also planned to look up some information to understand this world better. Moreover, this was also in line with Yuasuke and Haruhi Hiroyuki's wishes, so why not? Then it settled. Haruhi Hiroyuki made the final decision. Young Master Ren, why didn't you stop the two of them? Black Rabbit said helplessly. I'm sorry, Black Rabbit, because I couldn't stand it anymore, so... Ren gave Black Rabbit an apologetic smile. That was true, anyone who encountered such a situation would be filled with righteous indignation. However, without Wuming and 16 Nights' participation, Black Rabbit was quite worried. You don't have to worry, Black Rabbit, Haruhi Hiroyuki instantly subdued Guard when he went berserk. Is Hiroyuki that strong? Black Rabbit looked at Haruhi Hiroyuki in surprise. Not only Black Rabbit, but Wuming and 16 Nights also looked at Haruhi Hiroyuki. Seems like you have some skills, Haruhi Hiroyuki. 16 Nights showed an interested smile. Wuming also didn't expect that Haruhi Hiroyuki, who looked so weak, would be able to subdue the berserk beast man. Together with Miss Yuasuke's ability to dominate, I believe that with Miss Yuasuke and Haruhi Hiroyuki, our no-name will definitely win this gift competition. Ren said some encouraging words in one go. Oh! Black Rabbit shouted excitedly. Although it was awkward for her to be the only one shouting. This leader is not bad, but she still needs some polishing. Wuming thought. Well, since everyone is here, let's go to the no-names territory to take a look. Wuming and the other three nodded, and began to follow Ren and Black Rabbit to the no-name territory. Chapter 577. This is no-name's base. Zhou Yuao said in surprise. Let alone a base, from Zhou Yuao's point of view, this was clearly a ruin from who knows where. But she couldn't be blamed, anyone who saw such a scene would be surprised. What appeared in front of Wuming's group was a huge ruined courtyard that looked like a castle and a vast wasteland. There was even a huge hole in the middle of the wasteland. 16 Nights walked to the side of a broken wall and used his hand to lightly grab it. The wall immediately shattered like sand. Haruhi Hikari walked to the empty space and grabbed a handful of soil. He found that it was all soil and sand that had lost its nutrients. Black Rabbit, I remember you said that the Demon King's attack happened a few years ago, right? 16 Nights was rarely serious. To be precise, it was 3 years ago. Black Rabbit lowered his head. Zhou Yua walked to Haruhi Hikari's side and looked at No-Name's land that looked like it had been abandoned for hundreds or thousands of years. She frowned. But looking at the broken walls here, it's impossible to reach such a state in just 3 years. It wasn't that Zhou Yua was merciless, but this scene was too shocking. I'm sorry, this was indeed a fertile land 3 years ago. But because of the Demon King's attack 3 years ago, this land is still like this. Ren lowered his head secretly. It could be said that if Black Rabbit and Ren weren't members of No Name, they wouldn't believe that such a vast land could become like this in just 3 years. No, it should be said that it was in one night. But this land really did become like this on that night 3 years ago. And besides that, No Name's flag, name, and companions were all taken away. The Demon King left the land that has become like this to the remaining 120 members of No Name. But because these lands are barren, there are no other communities that want to take advantage of them. For everyone, it's already good to have a place to stay. Black Rabbit forced a smile, trying to make himself look less sad. Judo Asuka and Haruai Hiroyuki looked at each other, nodded, and walked towards the Black Rabbit. What do Miss Fei Niao and Miss Yao want to do? Black Rabbit looked at the two people who were walking towards him and asked. Punish the Black Rabbit. The Black Rabbit was stunned. Then, the Black Rabbit's ears were grabbed by the two people's hands, and it was the kind that was very forceful. Wait a minute. Why did he have to punish the Black Rabbit? And why is the punishment of pulling my ears? The Black Rabbit's eyes were filled with tears as it covered its ears with a pitiful expression. There's no need to do that in front of your companions, Black Rabbit. Jiu Yuanfei pulled on Black Rabbit's ear and said with interest. We're all companions. There's no need to force yourself like this. Haruai Hikari was the same. However, compared to Q Hikari, Haruai Hikari was happier. I know. So please spare Black Rabbit's ears. Ren stood at the side and revealed a helpless expression as he looked at Jiu Yuanfei and Haruai Hikari pulling on Black Rabbit's ears. So this is the power of the Devil King. Leaving behind a symbol of his destruction to show his strength. What a proper villain. 16 knights looked at the ruins and said excitedly without caring about Jiu Yuanfei and Haruai Hikari playing with Black Rabbit's ears. Then, 16 knights realized that Wu Ming was nowhere to be seen. After looking around carefully, he realized that Wu Ming was doing something in the huge hole in the wasteland. Hey! Brother! Did you find something? 16 knights shouted at Wu Ming and walked towards Wu Ming. Thanks to this, Jiu Yuanfei and the rest were attracted over. Everyone looked at Wu Ming who was standing at the edge of the hole. Did you really find something? Jiu Yuanfei and Haruai Hikari let go of Black Rabbit's ears and walked towards Wu Ming. Only then did Black Rabbit was released. Let's go take a look too, Black Rabbit. Ren said to Black Rabbit who was rubbing her ears. Although he said it with an apologetic and helpless expression. Although Black Rabbit was angry that her ears were being played with by the two problem children, she was also curious about Wu Ming's current situation. So, she nodded. The three problem children gathered around Wu Ming and looked at the hole that wasn't very big. They couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. This hole was created because the Devil King who attacked 3 years ago took away something underground. Black Rabbit began to explain. According to the older generation members of the community, this area has been a land of miraculous power since a long time ago. Many people speculated that there was some kind of powerful blessing buried underground. Every one of them wanted to dig this place up in search of the treasure. However, due to the interference of the various forces, none of them succeeded. It was only when our community heard about this that we moved our headquarters here, Ren explained. Then, you don't plan to dig up the gift in the ground? Jiu Yuanfei asked. After all, this was a land that many communities were fighting over. Shouldn't they dig it up to see what was inside? In fact, our community's previous leader led the core members to dig up this land. However, for some reason, it was left unsettled. Needless to say, the former members of No Name must have encountered some unexpected situation during the digging process. Moreover, it was an unprecedented situation, so they had no choice but to stop digging. Black Rabbit said with a regretful expression. Black Rabbit is also very curious about what is inside. Unfortunately, Black Rabbit isn't strong enough to see that scene. Then, Black Rabbit's expression became serious. Since then, everyone in the community was told not to have any ideas about the treasure under this land. Everyone was obedient, so they didn't bother about what was under the land. And 3 years ago, when the Devil King attacked our community, he took away the mysterious gift under this land. After taking it away, this huge hole was left behind. Hearing Black Rabbit's explanation, 16 Knights looked at Wu Ming with interest. But it seems like little brother has a lot to do with the mysterious gift under this land. 16 Knights looked at Wu Ming, who was starting to get irritated, and said jokingly. Although Wu Ming didn't say anything, everyone present could see that Wu Ming was in a very bad mood at the moment. It could be said that Wu Ming was angry. Although Wu Ming didn't say anything, his heart was indeed about to explode. The mysterious gift that was once buried in this huge hole was the body of his dragon of origin. Chapter 578. At this moment, Wu Ming's heart was abnormally complicated, and he felt quite helpless. Originally, after understanding that this world covered an incomparably large area, Wu Ming would not be able to easily find his original body. Although he could find it as long as he got close, Wu Ming felt that he would have to put in some effort. As a result, when he got close to the base of No Name, Wu Ming sensed the presence of his original body. Once he entered, Wu Ming did not say anything and went straight to the place where he sensed his original body, and then he saw a huge pit. Wu Ming was stunned at first, then he began to feel irritated. Originally, he thought that he would have to put in some effort, but in the end, he sensed the presence of his original body. This made Wu Ming happy for a moment, and then he realized that he had indeed found traces of his original body's presence, traces that had once existed in this place. And after Wu Ming finished listening to Black Rabbit's explanation, Wu Ming was a little angry. The former members of No Name excavating Wu Ming's body was not a big deal. After all, people were curious about the unknown, and the former members of No Name finally stopped excavating. They must have discovered that Wu Ming's original body was under the ground. Although he did not know why they stopped, Wu Ming was quite satisfied that they knew when to advance and when to retreat. And those demon kings who took Wu Ming's body were really looking for trouble. As the largest community in the East, No Name's strength 3 years ago was definitely not weak, but they still stopped excavating Wu Ming's original body. Wu Ming himself also knew that his original body was incomparably precious in a sense, and the former members of No Name being able to resist the temptation was naturally not bad. As for that demon king, since he was able to destroy No Name in one night, then his strength must be even stronger than No Name 3 years ago. And for a demon king who was stronger than No Name 3 years ago, and who wantonly used his authority as the host to attack other communities, there was nothing that he could not, or rather, did not dare to do. He just did not know if the opponent's courage was as strong as his strength, if Wu Ming found the opportunity. Wu Ming took a deep breath, trying to relax himself. Then, Wu Ming looked at everyone apologetically. Sorry, everyone, I lost my composure. It's okay, Mr. Villo must have discovered something important to him, that's why he lost his composure. Black Rabbit smiled slightly, and everyone nodded. Mr. Villo is our companion now. If possible, I hope that Villo can pour out all the bitterness in his heart. Black Rabbit could be said to apply what she learned. I am also curious as to what little brother discovered to be so angry, 16 Knights said with a chuckle. Judo Asuka and Haruai Hiroyuki nodded as well. Silent state was quite worrying. Wu Ming looked at everyone and fell into deep thought. That, if it's something that's inconvenient to say, you don't have to say it. Ren saw Wu Ming's hesitation and quickly tried to smooth things over. Wu Ming looked at Ren, smiled, and shook his head. There's nothing inconvenient, don't worry, Rin-kun. Wu Ming was actually thinking about what to say. Then, Wu Ming looked at everyone and spoke. 16 Knights and Black Rabbit already know, but I don't think the others know that I'm currently in a state similar to a ghost. Ghost? Jiuyu, Wu Ming, and Ren muttered. State. Black Rabbit and 16 Knights paid attention to the other part of Wu Ming's words. Let's put it this way, although I'm a ghost, I'm not dead, and this ghost state is the result of my own choice. Then, Wu Ming told everyone the half-truth and half-lie that he had conceived. In other words, you met a very powerful enemy, and when both sides were injured, you moved your spirit out of your body, and by chance, you found out that your real body was in this world, so you came to look for it. 16 Nights concluded Wu Ming's words. It feels a little magical. Wu Ming said calmly, but his eyes were filled with interest when he looked at Wu Ming, proving that Wu Ming's heart was not as calm as it seemed. Although it does feel magical, I didn't expect Willow to be a ghost. Let me touch it. Jiuyu's face was red, and her hands and feet began to move. Her gaze towards Wu Ming became dangerous, from Wu Ming's perspective. Although it's theoretically possible to separate one's spirit and body, this is the first time I've seen it. Ren looked at Wu Ming with interest. Although Ren was the current leader of No Name, he was still a child in his teens. He was far from the wisdom of an adult, so it was natural for him to be interested in strange things. But then again, Mr. Willow can travel between worlds on his own. That's a very powerful ability. Anyway, Black Rabbit could not travel between worlds, and among the people she knew, only the Shura gods and Buddhas had such an ability. Although Wu Ming's ability to travel between worlds was much higher than what Black Rabbit had imagined. In short, little brother, your real body was taken away by the Demon King, right? Then, are you interested in fighting the Demon King together? 16 Nights suddenly said. Wait. Wait a minute. Against the Demon King or whatever, we can't do it alone. Ren was shocked. That's right. Currently, there are only 6 people in our community who can participate in the gift competition. Moreover, Black Rabbit is a noble from the Box Court, so she can't freely participate in the gift competition. Although young Master Ren can participate in the gift competition, his strength is also very weak. Therefore, our current combat power is only the 4 of you who have just joined the Willow. Therefore, it's better to honestly develop the community bit by bit. Although the sentence "young Master Ren is very weak" made Ren's heart ache, it was the truth. Oh. So what, does having fewer people mean that we're weak? 16 Nights asked with a smile. 16 Nights' words made Black Rabbit and Ren look at each other. Indeed, the number of people doesn't mean the strength of the community. 3 years ago, there weren't many members of No Name, but they still became a community whose flag flew everywhere in the East District. Then there's no problem. Moreover, if we want to develop the community, there's nothing we can do without a name. Since that's the case, then why don't we just aim to become the Demon King? 16 Nights put his hands in his pockets, showing the look of a delinquent. Indeed, if we aim to defeat the Demon King that everyone is afraid of, it's hard not to be famous. Jiu Yuasuke agreed with 16 Nights' words. Agreed. The quiet girl Haruai Hiroyuki silently raised her small hand and agreed with the two. But Black Rabbit clearly wanted to say something, but 16 Nights of Reverse interrupted Black Rabbit. Then, little brother, you will definitely agree. After all, your real body was taken away by the Demon King. 16 Nights looked at Wu Ming, who hadn't spoken yet. Of course, even if you don't defeat the Demon King, I will go back by myself. Wu Ming said with incomparable determination. One must know that his purpose of coming to this world was to find his real body. His real body was currently taken away by the Demon King who attacked No Name, so there was only one thing left to do, and that was to beat up the Demon King and then take back his real body. What do you think, young Master Tiny Tot? After Wu Ming agreed, 16 Nights turned around and looked at Ren. Young Master Ren. Black Rabbit looked at Ren worriedly. After all, Ren had the title of the community leader. Although it existed in name, the community still needed Ren's approval to do anything. At this moment, the young man named Ren Russell lowered his head and hesitated. Ren didn't really understand the abilities of these new members. He only saw a trace of it from Jiu Yuasuke and Haruai Hiroyuki. Both of them had a very powerful gift to some extent. As for Wu Ming and 16 Nights, although Ren didn't know much about them. When Black Rabbit gave Ren the gift card containing the water tree sapling, Ren already knew that 16 Nights and Wu-Ming were not weak existences. To be able to go to the end of the world alone and defeat the water god, it was enough to give him the courage to challenge the Demon King. "I'm sorry, Black Rabbit." Ren apologized to Black Rabbit. "Young Master Ren, you want to?" Black Rabbit looked at Ren in surprise. In this way, how could everyone not know Ren's choice? "That's right, I have decided to listen to Lord Reversal's suggestion and set the community's purpose to defeat the Demon King." Ren looked at everyone with an incomparably determined gaze. "Well done, young Master Tiny Tot." 16 Nights laughed wildly. "Quite decisive, you have the makings of a good leader." Jo Yuasuka gracefully flicked her hair. "As expected, I can find friends here." Although Hiroi Hiroyuki's words were somewhat inexplicable, it was still able to liven up the atmosphere. "Young Master Ren, I support you." Black Rabbit clenched his fist. "Even if it's for my main body, I have to work hard," Wu-Ming said jokingly. After all, if it wasn't for his main body, would Wu-Ming not work hard? That was obviously impossible. Then, Ren gave an inspiring speech. "Then, everyone, in order to take back our flag and name, work hard towards the goal of defeating the Demon King." "Oh, oh, oh!" Black Rabbit roared angrily. This made everyone feel awkward. Taking a closer look, it was 16 Nights who covered Ren's mouth. Wu-Ming and the other three also subconsciously kept quiet. Clearly, the Black Rabbit was being teased again. "You problematic children, ah." The quick-witted Wu-Ming had already spiritualized and watched the remaining 3 problematic children being reprimanded by Black Rabbit. What a nice big family. Chapter 579. Although Ren had been sent back to the 16 Nights of hitting the snake with a stick and the purpose of no name was to defeat the Demon King, he still had to pay attention to the current situation. That was the competition with Forsgaro. The competition with Forsgaro is tomorrow. Let's take this opportunity to do a gift appraisal. Therefore, Wu-Ming and the other 3 followed Ren and Black Rabbit and went to a shop called Thousand Eyes. Along the way, Black Rabbit told everyone about Thousand Eyes. Thousand Eyes was a large business community headquartered in the upper 4 digits of the 3,345 outer gates. According to Black Rabbit, Thousand Eyes was an omniscient existence in the east, west, north, and south districts of Hakata. This suited the community's name, Thousand Eyes. Wu-Ming was interested in such a community that had a lot of information. Along the way, he asked Black Rabbit a lot about Thousand Eyes. But basically, Black Rabbit only answered things like powerful, having many community members under their command. Wu-Ming did not have any key, secret, information that he wanted to hear. But thinking about it, Black Rabbit was just a member of no name. Even if he was a Hakata noble, it was unlikely that he would know about the other community's secrets. Then, just as Black Rabbit finished explaining about Thousand Eyes, Wu-Ming sensed something flying towards them. If Silent Wonder's judgment was correct, the flying object's target was their group. Roajax of blazing 7 circles. Wu-Ming rushed in front of everyone and put one of his hands in front of him. Instantly, a shield that looked like 7 purple petals appeared. Bang! The white figure collided with the relic that Wu-Ming had created at the last minute using the Create Green item. The sound of the collision was so loud that it was painful to listen to. At the same time, Soundless Shield instantly released a large amount of air waves to the surroundings, as if it had been affected by the collision. The shockwave blew everyone's hair into a mess. Even a lady like Zhou Yuanfei now couldn't stand properly. Everyone was shocked. It was obvious that they did not understand what was going on. Could it be a divine spark armament? Black Rabbit looked at the shield Wu-Ming used in disbelief. 16 Nights, on the other hand, stared at Wu-Ming with an excited smile. As expected, you're very strong, little brother. 16 knights didn't notice the white figure's attack, but Wu Ming did. This meant that whether it was the white figure or Wu Ming, they were both stronger than him. After all, my mental strength isn't fake. It's not strange for me to sense that someone is coming before you. As he spoke, the 7 rings of blazing talent in front of Wu Ming's palm shattered, revealing the white figure that fell to the ground after colliding with Wu Ming's noble artifact. It was a kimono with a black base and blue sides that was the size of a primary school student. However, the most attractive part was her snow-white hair that was tied into a small braid. She was a proper kimono loli. Her inhuman-like pointy ears and golden pupils told everyone that the kimono loli in front of them was not human. After seeing the kimono loli's true face, Black Rabbit was obviously stunned. Master White Yiksha. Why are you at the lower level? It seemed like she was someone that he knew. This made Wu Ming feel awkward. Ouch. You really don't know how to be gentle with a girl. You actually used a shield to block a beautiful girl who threw herself at you. The kimono loli named White Yiksha rubbed her head that was hurting from the collision and got up from the ground. After all, I'm facing an unknown person who suddenly attacked me. What I did was right. Wu Ming shrugged. Oh, you're quite good at talking back. However, seeing that you were able to discover me, I won't argue with you, Mr. Ghost. Likewise, kimono loli. As he spoke, Wu Ming and White Yiksha looked at each other. Both of them stared into each other's eyes so closely that it seemed like sparks were flying. Two of you, please stop for a moment. Black Rabbit's forehead was sweating as he tried to persuade them. Humph. For Black Rabbit's sake, I won't argue with you. White Yiksha took out a folding fan and opened it with a swing, covering the lower half of his face. Thank you for your magnanimity, White Yiksha. Wu Ming responded with a smile. Immediately after, White Yiksha led everyone to a room in Thousand Eyes. Let me introduce myself first. I'm a cadre of Thousand Eyes, White Yiksha. At the same time, I'm also the floor master of the East District. Then, White Yiksha used the folding fan to cover his face and looked at Wu Ming. Villo Saransward, new member of No Name. A lost ghost who is searching for his original body, Wu Ming said simply. Next to Wu Ming were 16 Knights Reversal, Zhou Yuanfei, and Haruhibu Yayoi. 16 Knights Reversal, as you can see, the new member of No Name is an ordinary human, 16 Knights Reversal said heroically. Zhou Yuanfei, new member of No Name. At the moment, he's also an ordinary human, Zhou Yuanfei said elegantly. Haruhibu Yayoi, new member of No Name. An ordinary human. This is Sanmao Cat, Haruhibu Yayoi said in a casual manner and introduced his cat at the same time. However, to Black Rabbit, these 4 people were disaster-level problem children. Oh, are you the people that Black Rabbit summoned from another world? Let's not talk about these 3 for now. Your introduction to yourself is a little short. With that said, White Yiksha looked at Wu Ming. Then. Lord White Yiksha, please don't be so calculative. Black Rabbit thought that White Yiksha was still concerned about what happened just now and hurriedly tried to smooth things over. However, White Yiksha was not such a calculative person. She only cared about Wu Ming's identity. Although it's also because I didn't deliberately hide my figure, it can be said that you're very powerful to be able to discover my figure. I'm slightly interested in you. Immediately after, White Yiksha covered the lower half of her face with the paper fan and continued speaking. You should know that at the moment, I'm the strongest existence below 4 digits. You should know that the water god that Mr. Villo and Mr. 16 Knights defeated was given a godhead by Lord White Yiksha, Black Rabbit explained kindly. That made 16 Knights, Zhou Yuasuka, and Haruhibu Yayoi raise their eyebrows. Black Rabbit was instantly frightened as she was afraid that these 3 problem children would do something again. On the other hand, Wu-ming had the thought that this guy is really strong. One should know that the fake Roajax that Wu-ming created earlier using the create green item was filled with a large amount of mana by Wu-ming. It could be said that it was comparable to a real relic. After all, when facing an unknown world and unknown dangers, one had to face it with 200% of their attitude. However, even so, the fake Roajax that Wu-ming created had 7 layers of shields shattered after White Yiksha collided with it. At that time, the airwave that was produced was because all 7 floors had been broken through. If not for Wu-ming injecting a large amount of mana at the last minute, perhaps the fake Roajax would have shattered right away. Not only that, the reason why Wu-ming was hostile to White Yiksha was entirely because of the sense of danger that White Yiksha gave Wu-ming. To put it simply, White Yiksha's ability was definitely one of the top in the box. I'm indeed not weak, but I'm just a spirit that's looking for my original body, Wu-ming said calmly. Is that so? White Yiksha took a deep look at Wu-ming. But the power that can split a star in your body makes me nervous. Hey. Black Rabbit and Kazuhito looked at Wu-ming in shock. Even the 3 problem children looked at Wu-ming curiously. Wu-ming, on the other hand, felt rather helpless. The power that White Yiksha mentioned that could split a star in half was undoubtedly the divine sword of salvation. Although Wu-ming's spiritual body could use it, it was like a follower's relic. It was a god relic formed from pure mana. Theoretically, White Yiksha should not be too far away. However, there was another possibility, which was that White Yiksha had a close relationship with a star like the sun. Otherwise, White Yiksha would not be so cautious of Wu-ming. Be that as it may, I just want to find my original body as soon as possible, Wu-ming said calmly. He had no intention of explaining his power to everyone. Firstly, Wu-ming could not explain it clearly in a short period of time. Secondly, the power to split a star was considered a trump card, so there was no need to explain it too clearly. That was why everyone did not ask Wu-ming specifically. Well then, I hope you find your original body soon. White Yiksha smiled lightly. Subsequently, White Yiksha looked at everyone. So, what are you doing here at this branch of Thousand Yes? Chapter 580. Actually, we're here to appraise the gift. Can you help us appraise it, Lord White Yiksha? Black Rabbit looked at White Yiksha with greedy eyes. Clearly, Black Rabbit and White Yiksha knew each other, and they looked like acquaintances. Of course, appraising a gift would require some handling fees. With the current financial situation of no name, they would save as much as they could. Appraising the gift. White Yiksha glanced at Wu-ming, then looked around at Reverse 16 Knights, Jiu Fei Niao, and Haruhito Hikari. Alright, although this isn't what I'm good at, since Black Rabbit has spoken, let me help you a little. With that said, White Yiksha clapped his hands. Instantly, 4 rays of light condensed above Wu-ming and the others. Then, the light solidified and turned into 4 cards of different colors. They fell and were subconsciously grabbed by the 4. That's gift card. Black Rabbit exclaimed. Gift card. Jiu Fei Niao muttered as she looked at the red piece of paper in her hand and the words written on it. That's a high-level gift called Laplace paper. Not only can it store the gift, but it can also control the concealment and appearance of the gift card according to one's needs. Simply put, it's a bound personal warehouse, White Yiksha explained. Not only that, but the gift card can also appraise your gift. What's written on the paper is your gift. With that, White Yiksha moved and came to Wu-ming's side. He was quite interested in Wu-ming's gift. Then, he would be disappointed by the result. Blank. White Yiksha looked at the gift card in Wu-ming's hand with no words on it with a surprised expression. Then, as if he wanted to confirm whether the gift card was broken, White Yiksha moved to Reverse 16 Knight's side and looked at his gift card. Don't know. White Yiksha became more and more suspicious of whether these gift cards were broken. However, after seeing Prestige written on Jiu Fei Niao's card and Life Catalog written on Haruhito Hikari's card, this suspicion disappeared. But at the same time, he was curious about Wuming and the 16 Nights reversal. There had never been a case where 16 Nights couldn't be detected and Wuming was blank. If 16 Nights' grace couldn't be detected, it could be said that it was affected by its own grace, but Wuming's grace was completely blank. If the gift card was not damaged, it meant that the person being tested did not receive a gift. However, Wuming wasn't surprised. Although his ability could be considered a gift, Wuming didn't come from this world. Therefore, the definition of this world didn't apply to Wuming. This is really interesting. I'm looking forward to your future. Opening his fan to cover his chin, Wei Yiksha looked at Wuming and 16 Nights with interest. No Name was only here to test the grace. Now that the results were out, there was no reason for them to stay any longer. Therefore, Wuming and the rest bid farewell to Bai Yiksha. On the way back, Wuming began to remind them. The competition with Forsgaro is tomorrow. Those who are going to participate in the competition should prepare a little. Hearing Wuming's words, Ren, who was going to participate in the grace competition, nodded solemnly. Regardless of seniority, he was the weakest among all of them. Naturally, he needed to prepare. For Jiu Fei Niao and Haruhito Hikari, even without Wuming's reminder, the two problem children wouldn't relax. Or rather, how could they relax when it was their first time doing something in another world? It was like a child who couldn't sleep because of the excitement of going to the zoo the next day. However, the two of them weren't unable to sleep. Next, everyone returned to the No Name base. Then, Rin and Black Rabbit took Wuming's group of 4 to visit the various rooms and places in the No Name base. Although because of the Demon King, No Name not only was the land barren, but the houses also became dangerous. However, in the past 3 years, the remaining child members of No Name, Black Rabbit, and Rin didn't stay idle. They sneakily repaired the No Name house. At the very least, it was no longer a problem for people to live in. It was no longer a dangerous house. After the 4 of them chose their rooms, Wuming heard that there was a huge library under No Name. Then, after getting Ren's permission, Wuming said goodbye to everyone and went straight to the library alone. After coming to an unfamiliar place, the most important thing was to obtain unfamiliar knowledge. Because that meant that you had obtained information. And Wuming didn't have to worry about the language barrier. There was a magical place in the box court world. No matter what kind of world the person came from, no matter what kind of language the person spoke, what kind of words, the box court world would unify them, allowing the person's words to be automatically converted into the other person's language. For example, the person opposite you was clearly speaking English, but in your eyes, he was speaking German, whether it was the mouth or the voice. It was quite magical. But even if the box court didn't have such an ability, it didn't matter to Wuming. As the origin of almost all worlds, every time Wuming came to a new world, he would automatically master the world's common language. Otherwise, Wuming wouldn't be able to communicate normally with other people in other worlds. In addition, Wuming also had the God Slayer's 1,000 languages ability, which allowed him to completely learn a language in a very short time. In short, Wuming would never encounter an awkward situation where he couldn't read. Just like that, Wuming found a small, sturdy table, cleaned the dust on it, and sat down to read. It had to be said that although No Name had declined, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Although the library wasn't very big, the collection of books was still quite rich. Currently, Collis wasn't by Wuming's side, and Wuming didn't have the ability to quickly read books, so Wuming could only read books that were more important to Wuming. For example, the history of the box court, the specific classification of the box court, and so on. After an unknown amount of time, Wuming finished reading an unknown number of books in his hands. After closing it, he used his telekinesis to control the book and put it back on the bookshelf. Wuming couldn't help but sigh again. No Name was once the largest community in the East District. The quality of the books in the library was quite high. Wuming even thought that some of the books here might not be available in other communities. Moreover, the No Name library was well maintained. Although it had experienced the Demon King's attack, it was now only slightly dusty. It didn't look like it had been abandoned for 3 years. Someone should be cleaning it regularly. And Wuming could also see from some details that someone had been to this underground library recently. Maybe it's Ren. Wuming speculated. After all, even if he was the leader of a community in name only, Ren was still the leader of a community. It was necessary to supplement his knowledge appropriately. But judging from the dust in this underground library, the other party didn't come to the library often. Generally speaking, I've understood enough. Let's go out for a walk. As he said that, Wuming's eyes flashed. It's about time someone came. Then, Wuming walked out of the underground library and came to the surface. Chapter 581. After coming to the surface, Wuming found that the sky was completely dark. It's already this late. Wuming carefully looked at the moon in the sky that was almost the same as the moon in the ordinary world. Calculating the time by the moon's position, it was already midnight. After reading some books about this world, Wuming thought that in this world where gods and Buddhas walked everywhere, the moon should have been taken by the moon god. In the end, it was still hanging in the sky. But maybe the moon god was happy to do so. No longer paying attention to the moon, Wuming began to walk towards the outskirts of No Name's base. I hope I didn't miss a good show. No Name's base wasn't small, it could accommodate more than 100 people. Plus, it was bedtime, so Wuming didn't meet the other members of No Name. Jiu Yuasuka, Haruai Yori, and even Black Rabbit were probably already asleep. After all, staying up late wasn't good for the girl's skin, and there was a competition tomorrow. But Ren and 16 Knights probably couldn't go back to sleep. 16 Knights' proposal to fight the Infernal King was obviously not a random proposal, so it wasn't impossible for 16 Knights and Ren to have a candlelight talk tonight. But with 16 Knights' brain, there shouldn't be a need for a candlelight talk, which meant that Ren should be asleep. And in Wuming's opinion, 16 Knights definitely wouldn't sleep. That guy is a smart guy, it's impossible that he didn't think that Forsgaro would send people to play dirty. The good show Wuming mentioned before was this. After all, this trick had worked against the opponent time and time again. How could the opponent give up using this trick just because he was tricked during the day? As Wuming spoke, he expanded the range of his spiritual perception. In an instant, No Name's entire base was enveloped by Wuming's spiritual power. Over there. Wuming revealed an expression that said he expected it, and then walked in the direction of his perception. In Wuming's perception, Wuming saw 16 Knights standing in front of a small forest. However, not only did Wuming sense 16 Knights, but he also sensed a group of thieves in the woods. However, Wuming couldn't help but complain about the other party's sneaking technique. Perhaps in front of ordinary people, the other party's technique was quite perfect, but in Wuming's eyes, the other party was like a big light bulb walking in the dark. It was hard not to notice. To put it simply, 16 Knights had already discovered them. Boom, it sounded like something had exploded. Wuming didn't need to look to know that it was 16th Knights. After walking over unhurriedly, this was the scene that greeted him. Reverse 16 Knights smiled as he weighed the small stones in his hand. He looked at the 5 or 6 assassin-like people lying on the ground in front of him. There was also a crater in front of them that looked like it had been hit by a cannonball. There was no doubt that these people were wearing the blessing of Knight stealth, but because their levels were too low, they couldn't hide from 16 Knights. As for the crater in front of them, it was obvious from the rock in 16th Knight's hand that it was caused by the rock 16th Knight threw. What an inhuman human, Wuming complained in his heart. Oh, isn't it little brother? You finally came out of the library. Although he had already noticed Wu Ming's spirit, 16 Knights still had a, "Oh, what a coincidence," look on his face. "I'm still a little worried, so I came out to take a look." Wu Ming looked at the brown-clothed people who were obviously frightened. "But it seems that I have nothing to do. After all, I can't let you be in the limelight for everything." 16 Knights shrugged and deliberately showed a helpless expression. However, 16 Knights' helplessness made Wu Ming smile helplessly. He could only say that he was indeed a problematic child. What happened? Ren, who was originally awakened after falling asleep, ran over. "As you can see, guard's dirty trick has been taken care of by 16 Knights." Wu Ming shrugged. Then, Wu Ming heard the brown-clothed people whispering. "Such strength, could it be that the rumor of defeating the water god is true? If that's the case, we can be saved." Wu Ming instantly understood that these guys were the pawns of guard who were using the hostages of their community as hostages to control them. "Let me tell you in advance, the hostages in guard's hands have been killed by guard." "What?" After these people heard it, they were all in disbelief. "Our companions here have the ability to make guard reveal the truth. Guard has personally told us to kill the hostages directly." Wu Ming added. These people were silent. But thinking about it carefully, after those hostages were taken away, they indeed never saw those hostages again. "Wait. Mr. Villo, why did you tell them directly?" Ren looked at Wu Ming with some concern. Ren's meaning was naturally to consider the other party's feelings. After all, the hostages who had been threatened were killed from the beginning, and it was inevitable that some people would not be able to accept it. "I think the little brother did a good job. I don't expect to consider their feelings. These people have helped guard do a lot of such things." 16 Knights said sarcastically. "I'm very sorry. I'm obviously here to harm you, but at this moment, I made a willful request. But please listen to me." Then, the leader spoke out his request. "Guard is relying on the protection of the Demon King to do whatever they want in the outer sect of 2105380. If possible, we hope that you can beat Guard to a pulp in the gift competition tomorrow. Please." A brown-clothed person who looked like the leader walked forward and bowed deeply to Wu Ming and the other two. "Please." The other brown-clothed people also bowed to Wu Ming and the other two. 16 Knights' face showed an expression of, "I was waiting for you to say that." Then, he grabbed Ren's shoulder. "No problem. Guard, the Demon King's minion, will be defeated by the community led by Ren Russell." "Thank you very much." The brown-clothed people responded in unison. And Ren Russell, the 11-year-old child, was stunned on the spot. Hey. A moment later, after Wu Ming gave them some instructions, the brown-clothed people all retreated. Wu Ming and the other two also moved from the courtyard outside to the inside of the house. In the boardroom-like room, 16 Knights was enjoying the night view while Wu Ming was sitting on the sofa reading a book, constantly flipping through it. Wu Ming used his spirit power to take it out when he passed by the library. Ren, on the other hand, stood beside 16 Knights with a pained expression. "Mr. 16 Knights, why did you say that?" Ren was naturally referring to the community led by Ren Russell that 16 Knights mentioned. "Although I accepted your suggestion to take down the Demon King as the goal, but to directly use my name to publicize it, it's a little." To put it bluntly, Ren was embarrassed. "Just forgive 16 Knights this time, Ren. After all, the only person our community can bring out is the leader." Black Rabbit's identity was special, so naturally, it could not be used for publicity. Wu Ming and the other three were newcomers who had just joined the community, and they did not have the chance to show their strength. Even the news of them defeating the water god was spread in an unreliable way. So, only Ren Russell, the leader, was left to publicize. Well, there's nothing bad about it. After all, you're the leader of the community, Ren. 16 Knights smiled gently. That's right. Just accept it. Wu Ming flipped through the pages while persuading. Since things had come to this, Ren could only nod. Speaking of which, little brother, what did you say to those people? I'm very curious. 16 Knights asked. It's nothing big. I just told them that no name can restore their community's freedom. But in return, I hope that those who did such things can turn themselves in early to atone for the children killed by guard. After all, it was not something shameful, so Wu Ming said it casually. After all, even if they were forced, it could not hide the fact that they were guards' accomplices. Although their crimes did not warrant death, they still had to accept the necessary punishment. You're really kind, little brother, 16 Knights Reversal said in a mocking and praising tone. Turning themselves in early and pleading guilty after being caught were two different concepts. The former would definitely be dealt with lightly. The ordinary laws of other worlds stipulated this, so the laws of the United States of America were not much different. It could be said that Wu Ming's actions were actually helping those people. It's just a suggestion. It's up to them whether they listen or not. Wu Ming said casually, his eyes still on the book in his hand. Of course, it was not that Wu Ming looked down on those people, but there were definitely not many who were willing to turn themselves in early. After all, this was also a gamble. What if no name lost after turning themselves in? Opportunities would not wait. If they could not seize the opportunity, it was not Wu Ming's problem. At this time, the door of the conference room was pushed open. "Ah, is everyone here?" the owner of the voice asked with some surprise. Chapter 582. Did something happen? Jiu Yuao asked Wu Ming and the others. Wu Ming raised his head and looked at the newcomers. It was Jiu Yuao, Haruai Hiroyuki, and Kurorobi. Looking at the three's still damp hair, Wu Ming speculated that the three of them might have just finished bathing. When they passed by, they noticed the light and came in to take a look. So you guys didn't sleep? I thought you guys were all asleep. Wu Ming put down the book in his hand when he saw everyone coincidentally gathered together. After dinner, Black Rabbit took us to the no-name bathhouse. There is a place where we can take a bath. It took us some time. Haruhi Pikari said as he hugged the three-furred cat. There were still water droplets on his hair. Although it wasn't that he couldn't understand, Wu Ming still had the mentality of complaining about the girl taking so long to take a bath. But this also explained why Jiu Yuao and the others didn't know what happened. No Name's bathhouse was also underground, and the location of the entrance was quite hidden from outsiders. This was mentioned when Ren and Kurorobi brought Wu Ming and the others to visit the room. But if Jiu Yuao and Haruai Hiroyuki knew that they missed a good show, they would probably be angry. As for why Ren was disturbed by 16th Night's explosion and the other children weren't disturbed, it was because 16th Night obviously went easy on them and didn't use so much strength. Secondly, Ren's place was closest to the brown-clothed man and 16th Night. Otherwise, Ren wouldn't have been able to get dressed in such a short time. Ren's place was close to 16th Night and the brown-clothed man's place. It could only be said that it was a coincidence. I have to say, the bathhouse here is quite good. Jiu Yufei stretched her back lazily. Coupled with the clothes she was wearing, Jiu Yufei looked quite charming even though she hadn't fully developed yet. This clothes suits you. Wu Ming looked at Jiu Yuao's clothes and commented. The clothes that Flying Bird was originally wearing were gone, replaced by a bright red princess dress that reached her ankles. Thank you. Jiu Yuan Flying Bird bowed to Wu Ming. Well, you're welcome. It's just that the size doesn't fit. Hearing Wu Ming's words, Jiu Fei Niao immediately reacted. His face turned red as he covered his chest. Because the clothes were made with the body of a black rabbit, a healthy black rabbit naturally couldn't be the same size as a bird that hadn't developed much. Pervert. Shut up. Jiao Fei Niao instinctively used his grace. As soon as Zhou Yuan Flying Bird said that, Wu Ming felt as if he had been shackled. However, in an instant, those shackles were broken by Wu Ming. Is this the effect of your grace? Using the spirit of speech to control? Wu Ming pondered, feeling the state just now. It doesn't work. This was the first time Zhou Yuan Flying Bird's ability failed. It's not that it doesn't work. It's just that it's more difficult for you to control someone who is stronger than you. Wu Ming didn't mind Flying Bird using his grace on him. After all, he was the one who teased her first. Just like me, your grace did have an effect on me. However, because I'm much stronger than you, the moment you tried to control me, I broke free from your control. Wu Ming explained enthusiastically. However, that's also related to the user's lack of development. Hearing Wu Ming's words, Zhou Yuan Flying Bird's expression darkened. That can't be helped. I don't want to control others. Hearing this, Wu Ming's gaze wavered. That. Everyone, if there's nothing else, let's go to sleep. After all, we still have to compete with Forsgaro tomorrow. Black Rabbit quickly mediated. After all, tomorrow's grace competition was the first grace competition for No Name after the new members joined. Naturally, they had to take it seriously. Looking at the moon outside, it was indeed very late. Wu Ming agreed. If you have anything to say, let's save it for tomorrow. You should know that staying up late isn't good for a girl's skin. This teasing sentence made Flying Bird, Yao, and Black Rabbit quickly return to their rooms. Wu Ming and Ren greeted each other and returned to their room under 16 Nights' teasing gaze. The next morning, Jiao Fei Niao, Kasuga Tribe's Yahajin Russell, accompanied by Wu Ming, 16 Nights Reverse, and Black Rabbit, walked towards the Forsgaro base. By the way, Flying Bird's clothes had already been adjusted by Black Rabbit. Because No Name was the challenger, the content and venue of the competition were decided by Forsgaro. This time, Forsgaro's competition venue was set in the residential area. There were 3 types of areas in the box court world. The stage area for competitions, the free area for business and entertainment, and the residential area for eating and living. This time, Forsgaro held the grace competition in their residential area. Wu Ming didn't have any doubts about this result. After all, it was better to play dirty in one's own territory. However, this didn't mean that Wu Ming wouldn't do anything. At this time, 16 Nights, who was walking at the back, started a conversation with Wu Ming, who was also walking at the back. By the way, you're really cruel, little brother. 16 Nights was referring to the incident where Wu Ming instigated the brown-shirt men to turn themselves in last night. After all, they did make a mistake. It's not something that can be made up for by helping us fight against Forsgaro. Wu Ming shrugged his shoulders. While talking with 16 Nights, Wu Ming also controlled his mental strength to explore the community of Forsgaro. Wu Ming didn't think that the other party wouldn't think of other ways after their dirty trick failed. Wu Ming and 16 Nights weren't afraid of the other party's dirty tricks, but it was hard to say for Zhou Yuasuka, Haruhito Yayoi, and Ren who were preparing to participate in this grace competition. After all, the 3 people's grace competitions weren't directly lethal. Therefore, Wu Ming prepared to use his mental strength to check the current situation of Forsgaro for everyone. Well, as long as you're happy. 16 Nights didn't pay attention to this matter. Anyway, even if they didn't turn themselves in, after Forsgaro was defeated, the secret would naturally be exposed. At that time, as the ruler of the East District, Byakuya wouldn't ignore it. 16 Nights knew this, so he didn't care about those people. What are Mr. 16 Nights and Mr. Villo talking about? Black Rabbit noticed the conversation between Wu Ming and 16 Nights and asked curiously. It's nothing. We were just discussing how to cook the rabbit to make it tastier. 16 Nights smiled at the Black Rabbit. How could Black Rabbit not know that he was teased by 16 Nights again? Mr. 16 Nights, you big idiot. Black Rabbit said as he took out a paper fan and hit 16 Knights on the head. Although he didn't know why 16 Knights didn't say anything, Wuming didn't want to say anything about what happened last night. After all, it wasn't a big deal, so there was no need to take care of everything. At this time, Wuming's mental strength sensed that something was wrong. Something happened to Forsgaro. Chapter 583. After everyone heard Wuming's words, they hurriedly ran towards the Forsgaro's base. It wasn't that everyone was concerned about Forsgaro, it was just that Forsgaro's mishap happened at the wrong time. Although it was beneficial for one side to have an accident, Forsgaro had an accident right before the start of the gift match. This made it easy for people to think that Forsgaro was unscrupulous in order to win. Even though the bestowment competition would naturally be cancelled and no name would not be able to gain any benefits, it would still inevitably bring negative influence to no name. From an outsider's point of view, this was how things were. The biggest community in the outer sect, 2105380, had met with trouble on the eve of the bestowment competition with no name, who had been attacked by the Demon King. It must have been a mere no name who played a dirty trick. From an outsider's point of view, this was the truth of the matter. Once the outside world thought that no name was a community that relied on underhanded means to survive, it would be terrible. It must be known that without a banner or a name, it would be very troublesome for no name to rise to prominence. If this infamy was added to no name, then no name would really be unable to reverse the situation. Of course, this was all just guesswork. The future could not be predicted. What everyone needed to do now was to find out what happened to Forsgaro as soon as possible. Because they were already very close to Forsgaro's base, after Wuming said that something happened to Forsgaro, everyone only needed to jog to reach Forsgaro's designated competition area. It was a manor that occupied a large area. The manor's door was tightly shut. Through the walls, they could see the lush trees growing in the manor. There was nothing out of the ordinary. However, this seemingly peaceful manor was filled with a deathly silence. This did not match the bestowment competition that was about to be held. Something is wrong. Black Rabbit was slightly afraid as he pulled back his rabbit ears. Without saying anything else, Wuming walked directly to the manor's main door. He reached out his hand and gently pushed the door open. Wait a minute, Mr. Villo. We haven't confirmed the final personnel yet. The door to the gift competition venue can't be opened, however, Black Rabbit stopped halfway through its sentence. The gate of the manor was easily pushed open by Wuming, revealing a quiet forest. Wuming's footsteps did not stop as he directly walked in. Then, the three problem children followed Wuming's footsteps and walked through the door. It was open just like that, and other people were allowed to enter. Does that mean the gift competition has been cancelled? Although 16 Knights didn't go to the library last night, he still learned a lot of information from Ren. The venue that was designated as the venue for the gift competition could not be forcibly entered unless the gift competition was cancelled. Only then would one be allowed to enter. However, even if the gift competition was cancelled, this was still the residential area of Orescaro. Let's not talk about the fact that people could enter this place at will. Even if the gift competition was cancelled, there should still be guards in the residential area. But now, the entire forest was silent as if it was dead. There was not a single trace of human presence. What if the gift competition was cleared? Wuming suddenly said. This made everyone think for a moment. Even though we don't know the details of the match, we can tell that this place is a lush forest. We can guess that the match will be a blessing match to find something in the forest or kill an enemy. Wuming took 2 steps forward and arrived at the edge of the forest. If that's the case, the enemy can't be outside, but inside. After all, Guard knew about the powerful abilities of Juyuki Asaka and Haruhito Yayoi, so they definitely wouldn't use open means. And if it was really as Wuming guessed, Guard might have ambushed them secretly. If there was a powerful person who came here in advance and got rid of Fog, then there would be such a quiet scene. That's what you're guessing, right, little brother? 16 Knights walked to Wu Ming's side with his hands on his head. But it's also possible that the powerful person hacked into Orescaro last night, and that's why it's like this now. After all, if Orescaro started the gift competition that only No Name could participate, then the other party wouldn't be able to do anything. It had to be said that the Hakata world was really a magical place. The power of the gift competition was spread throughout the entire Hakata. Black Rabbit, I'll have to trouble you to obtain some information from the center of the box court. Ask if the bestowment competition has been held here. Wu Ming looked at Black Rabbit as he spoke. As a noble of the Hakata, Black Rabbit's ears were connected to the Hakata center. This was also why you Rabbit, a noble of the Hakata, often acted as a referee. If a noble of the Hakata favored either side as a referee, they would instantly explode and die. This also made the contestants and the organizers feel quite relieved. After all, if you Rabbit favored one side as a referee, the consequences would be severe. She could also tell everyone that the referee had broken the rules, so why not? By the way, Black Rabbit was the referee for the gift competition between No Name and Orescaro today. But because of this, Wu Ming asked Black Rabbit to get information from the Hakata Center. Although Black Rabbit couldn't access the Hakata Center as easily as browsing the internet, he could still ask about the scheduled gift competition. Yes, Black Rabbit will do it now. With that said, Black Rabbit closed its eyes, its ears constantly moving. In just a few seconds, Black Rabbit opened his eyes. You're right, Mr. Vero. The bestowment contest that was supposed to take place here never happened. Since this was the case, Wu Ming and the others had already entered the scheduled competition venue, and no one from Orescaro's side had appeared. Perhaps Orescaro was really defeated. Could it be that a demon king attacked Orescaro last night? Ren frowned and said with some worry. It couldn't be said that Ren's worries were groundless. Because, only a demon king would dare to attack Orescaro, which was a legitimate community on the surface. It's hard to say at the moment. After all, crimes that have not been discovered are not illegal in the Hakata. Wu Ming shook his head. They couldn't rule out the possibility that another community had attacked Orescaro at night and wanted to take the opportunity to frame No Name. It was still the same saying, crimes that have not been discovered are not crimes. Just like how guards secretly kidnapped other community members and used this as a threat to force the other community to block the flag of the gift competition. However, Wu Ming was more inclined to believe that a powerful person had attacked Orescaro. The reason was the extremely silent forest in front of him. It wasn't that Wu Ming looked down on people, but in the outer door of 2105380, there was no community that had such power. Otherwise, the largest community in the outer door of 2105380 would not be Orescaro, but other communities. Of course, all of this had to exclude No Name at the moment. Take 16th Knights, who had a short fight with Wu Ming, as an example. After reading the books about the combat power of the Hakata in No Name's underground library, Wu Ming conservatively estimated that 16th Knights was in the lower level of the Hakata. Among the 6 and 7 digits, there was no one who could compete with him. Even among the 5 digits in the middle level, 16th Knights was considered one of the best. However, because Wu Ming had not specifically fought with 16th Knights, it was difficult to determine which number 16th Knights belonged to. However, what was certain was that people like Wu Ming and 16th Knights could completely eliminate a 7-digit community in one night. Of course, people like 16th Knights who were more violent would definitely not clean up the battlefield so cleanly. In short, Wu Ming believed that this place was attacked by a powerful person. However, why would the other party attack Orescaro the day before Orescaro and No Name's gift match? Even if they wanted to seek revenge, it would be too much of a coincidence. Or rather, the other party's target is actually No Name. Wu Ming said lightly as he closed his eyes. In an instant, everyone felt that something had passed through their bodies. Chapter 584. Everyone felt that their bodies were penetrated by something. It was the result of Wu Ming's mental power being released without any concealment. Everyone also knew that Wu Ming was using his mental power to detect something, so they didn't disturb Wu Ming. Wu Ming was naturally looking for the guy who attacked Forsgaro. Wu Ming had an intuition that if the other party came for no name, then at this moment, the other party must be monitoring the situation here. This quiet manner was the best protection, wasn't it? However, the other party probably didn't know that Wu Ming was a radar that could scan a large area. In just an instant, Wu Ming's mental power enveloped the entire manor, and a spiritual map appeared in Wu Ming's heart. In the manor, there was only a bungalow in the center. Guard and what seemed to be guard subordinates were lying unconscious in the house. However, they didn't seem to be dead. It seems that the attacker wasn't a bad person. Wu Ming thought. Just knocking out guard and the others who had committed the most heinous crimes instead of killing them was already a very kind existence in Silent Wonder's eyes. At this moment, at the edge of Wu Ming's perception, a shadow quickly rushed out of the manor. Found it. Wu Ming suddenly opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the shadow. Over there. As if receiving a signal, 16 Knights suddenly bent his body and then stomped on the ground with one foot. His whole body was like a cannonball that rushed in the direction Wu Ming was looking at. The ground where 16th Knight had been was now covered in spiderweb-like cracks. This made Rin rustle, who had never seen 16 Knights explode, dumbfounded. There is a bungalow in this forest. Guard and the others are unconscious inside. You guys be careful and go take a look. I'll meet up with 16 Knights. After all, the bungalow in the forest was not difficult to find. Wu Ming just gave a simple explanation. After Wu Ming finished speaking, a black hole appeared in front of him. Wu Ming suddenly plunged into the black hole. Immediately after, the black hole shrank and disappeared. Ren was dumbfounded as he watched the two of them leave in different but equally bizarre ways. Mr. 16 Knights and Mr. Villo. They are both very powerful people. Outside the manor, a black-purple ripple suddenly appeared on the path that the black shadow had to take to escape. The black figure did not have the slightest intention of stopping. Then, with a movement that was quite strange in the eyes of ordinary people, it changed direction without slowing down by 90 degrees and continued to flee. When an obstacle appeared in front of him, the black shadow did the same thing as before and immediately changed direction. However, now, you have nowhere to run. Wu Ming's voice came from the beginning of the black ripple. Immediately after, Wu Ming's figure walked out of the black portal. These silver chains were naturally the pseudo-heavenly lock, a fake created by Wu Ming on the spot. After all, the real thing was basically used on Hercules, who was sunk by Wu Ming in the American continent. Those black ripples were the portal that Wu Ming had shrunk. Those openings were just to allow the pseudo-heavenly lock to connect with each other and form a cage to trap the enemy like now. Now, abilities such as the portal and create advanced item no longer required Wu Ming to chant. He could release them with just a thought. This was also thanks to the development of Wu Ming's mental power. The place that was detected by Wu Ming's mental power also became a place that Wu Ming had been in disguise, so the portal could be used normally. Wu Ming looked at the black shadow in the cage. Just as he was about to say something, a voice interrupted Wu Ming. Oh, am I late? 16 Knights also rushed over at this moment. After all, the distance was not far. Coupled with the speed of 16 Knights, it was not difficult to find this place in less than a minute. Although an incomparably silent forest would bring fear to intruders, if they became hunters, then the silent forest would become the best way for hunters to find prey. After all, among a lot of motionless things, the moving thing was the most conspicuous. Then, 16 Knights Reversal laughed as if he was complaining. Little brother, you actually have such a convenient thing, how cunning. Obviously, the scene of Wu Ming walking out of the portal was seen by 16 knights who rushed over. It's all because you're too excited. Wu Ming shook his head helplessly. He originally wanted to use the portal with 16 knights, but as soon as Wu Ming said, "Found it," 16 knights directly rushed in the direction that Wu Ming was looking at. After all, this is a big shot who killed the suspected demon king of Orescaro. How can I give it to you? 16 knights laughed wildly. However, 16 knights looked at the black shadow that was trapped by Wu Ming's unknown chain cage and smacked his lips unhappily. But since you came first, I won't fight with you this time. 16 knights looked at the villa with an expression that said, "You got a big deal," and also gave Wu Ming a "good luck, I'm looking forward to it" gesture. This made Wu Ming a little embarrassed. Not to mention whether the other party was the demon king or not, they were still not sure whether the other party was an enemy or not. They might not even be able to fight. However, the necessary contact was necessary. Then, the person hiding in the shadows, "You can come out now," Wu Ming said as he looked at the mysterious black shadow shrouded in the pseudo-heavenly lock cage. As if giving up, the shadow gradually dispersed, revealing the person hidden in the shadows. It was a lowly with curly blonde hair that reached her waist with a large bow tied behind her head. She was wearing a red jacket, black underwear, and a long gray tie. She was wearing a white fabric that looked like shorts, a short skirt, and a jacket. There were also 4 black ribbons that extended from the fabric, fluttering on both sides of her calves. Gray and black striped pantyhose matched with short boots. This outfit made the lowly look very strange. Oh. I didn't expect it to be a blonde lowly. I have never fought with a lowly before. 16 knights looked at Wu Ming with a face of happiness. However, Wu Ming really couldn't agree with 16 knights' thinking. Shouldn't a normal person's first reaction when seeing a beautiful lowly would be to think that she was cute or something like that? Why did 16 knights look like she wanted to fight with her? But looking at it from another perspective, 16 knights' approach wasn't wrong. After all, the other party was also the big shot that finished Forsgaro in one night. No matter how weak Forsgaro was, in the eyes of 16 knights, this blonde lowly was an existence that could act as a demon king. Since you've revealed yourself, it means that you're willing to talk to us. Then, can you tell me who you are, Miss Vampire? Wu Ming asked the blonde lowly, his ruby-like eyes looking at the blonde lowly's red eyes. The blonde lowly was obviously stunned, but she recovered in an instant. "Oh, you know my background the first time we meet. You're really not bad, little brother." However, in the face of 16 knights teasing, Wu Ming chose to ignore it, his eyes were still looking at the blonde lowly. "My name is Letitia de Crea, I was once a companion of No Name." The blonde lowly, or Letitia, directly stated her identity. This time it was Wu Ming's turn to be stunned. Wu Ming really didn't think that the other party would be so honest and directly state her name. As for No Name being a companion, Wu Ming chose to believe Letitia. After all, this kind of lie that could be easily exposed would not be used by anyone. So that's how it is. So that's why you attacked Forsgaro. The community that he used to be in that had declined was bullied by other strong communities. With his strength, he couldn't stand it and wanted to teach those communities a lesson. This made sense. However, Letitia shook her head. "In fact, I originally wanted to use Forsgaro to test the strength of the new members of No Name." As she said this, Letitia's eyes revealed a trace of sadness and determination. This made Wu Ming, who was talking to Letitia, see some clues. It seems that this is also a person with a story. Chapter 585. Letitia gave Wu Ming the feeling that she was entrusting her child to him. It seemed like she was hiding something. "Then, what made you give up on the idea of using Forsgaro, and even defeated them with your own hands?" Wu Ming had already begun to believe that Letitia was a former companion of No Name, because Wu Ming didn't think that her eyes were deceiving him. If she really had such superb acting skills, then Wu Ming was willing to admit defeat. Because I saw you. Letitia looked at Wu Ming as if she was looking at the hope of no name. This made 16 Knights, who was on the side, narrow his eyes. Looking at Letitia's appearance, it seemed like she had seen Wu Ming before, or at least seen Wu Ming's strength. Although Wu Ming didn't have the impression of seeing Letitia before, Wu Ming wasn't surprised by Letitia's words. Letitia gave Wu Ming the impression that she was a fruit that had been hollowed out. She looked strong on the outside, but she didn't have much strength on the inside. In other words, Letitia used to be very strong, but now she had weakened for some unknown reason. No matter what the reason was, Wu Ming only needed to know that Letitia used to be very strong. Since that was the case, Letitia might have followed the former leader of No Name to excavate Wu Ming's body. Wu Ming guessed that it might be because Letitia was also present when No Name was excavating Wu Ming's body, and for some unknown reason, she had seen Wu Ming's strength. And now, after Wu Ming came to this world using his spiritual body, he didn't deliberately suppress his abilities, so Letitia might have seen some clues. Have you seen my body before? Wu Ming suddenly asked. Letitia nodded her head very naturally. Your body was in No Name's base, but 3 years ago, it was taken away by the Demon King who attacked No Name. Wu Ming, who had been to No Name, naturally knew about this. Then, why are you so sure that my body is the existence buried under your land? This was indeed a problem. After Wu Ming came to this world, other than the fact that he didn't restrain his aura and pressure at the beginning, he had basically kept it hidden. And his key abilities weren't exposed much. In the eyes of No Name, Wu Ming was just a powerful spirit with some special power that could freely travel between worlds. Although 16 Knights might have seen that Wu Ming wasn't simple, it was still just a guess. But after Wu Ming and Letitia's conversation, Wu Ming had confirmed his identity. An unknown life form with powerful strength that had yet to be revealed. Something like that. In any case, Wu Ming had already sensed 16th Knight's battle intent. Letitia, SSS Letitia is. Letitia's words reminded Wu Ming of what happened last night. Last night, in order to show off his strength, Wu Ming did reveal his pressure. But it seemed that this fleeting aura was caught by Letitia. Your aura is exactly the same as your body's aura, incomparably powerful. Letitia, who had followed the leader of the community to excavate Wu Ming's body, recognized the powerful aura at a glance. Wu Ming smiled helplessly. It was because Letitia recognized that this new member was the spiritual body of a powerful being that had once been buried under No Name. Letitia decisively gave up on using Forsgaro to test the new member and even taught Forsgaro a lesson. This led to the previous situation. He didn't expect this vampire girl to be so protective. Then, Wu Ming had a wicked thought. Then, looking at this coincidence, I'll give you the right to choose. Wu Ming walked to the front of the cage formed by the pseudo-heavenly lock. His footsteps did not stop. Like a ghost, he directly passed through the pseudo-heavenly lock and walked in front of Letitia. Then, Wu Ming, with a serious face, used his red eyes to stare at Letitia's eyes, which were the same color as his own, and said word by word. Do you want me to protect No Name, or do you want me to pull you back from hell? Letitia was not surprised that Wu Ming knew her situation was not good. Maybe in her opinion, someone of Wu Ming's level should know everything. But Wu Ming was just trying to get information out of her. I choose to let you protect No Name. Letitia said her thoughts without hesitation. Even 3 years ago, Letitia could not recognize what kind of existence Wu Ming's original body was buried under her community. Now that her strength was greatly reduced, she was even more unable to recognize it. But Letitia knew one thing, and that was if No Name was protected by such a big shot, not to mention getting back the previous name and flag, No Name could even go further. Wu Ming closed his eyes when he heard the answer that he expected. Then, Wu Ming smiled and put his hand on Letitia's small head. You're really a greedy little guy. Even when Wu-Ming stroked her head, Letitia's face did not move at all. But Letitia's slightly red cheeks showed that her heart was not calm. So, you agree? Letitia raised her head that was slightly lowered because of Wu-Ming's touch. But Wu-Ming shook his head. Unfortunately, I can't protect no name like you said. First of all, Wu-Ming's main mission in this world was to find his original body. He only joined no name because he was touched by Black Rabbit's sentiments of protecting his home and wanted to help them. It could be said that if he did not join no name, Wu-Ming could still find his original body in this world. However, after joining no name, he obtained information about his original body first. This was something that Wu-Ming had to thank no name. And because Wu-Ming's original body was corroded by the Black Origin mud, Wu-Ming temporarily could not remove his spiritual body and return to his original body. If he forcefully removed his spiritual body, then Wu-Ming would only return to the backup body in the origin. Therefore, Wu-Ming had to take one step at a time to find his original body. Secondly, Wu-Ming could not stay in this world forever. Although Gideon was injured, it was still a hidden threat. But fortunately, if Gadotzi used the blade of salvation made by the Holy Grail to summon Wu-Ming, Wu-Ming would also be able to sense it. When the time came, Wu-Ming could use the Holy Grail version of the blade of salvation as a medium to create a spirit base. Now, Wu-Ming could easily control multiple bodies with one mind. Even if it was cross-world control, it was the same. At most, there would be a slight delay in the consciousness of both sides. But Letitia panicked when she heard Wu-Ming's rejection. Please promise me, I'll do anything you want me to. To be honest, although Letitia was not very clear about the three newcomers other than Wu-Ming, the three of them definitely could not be compared to no name from 3 years ago. As a former demon king who was defeated and absorbed into the former no name, Letitia was very clear about how powerful this community was in the past. However, such a powerful community was still attacked by the Demon King, and in the end became the current no name. If the enemy who attacked no name 3 years ago came again, the three newcomers would not be able to resist at all. In Letitia's opinion, only Wu-Ming had the ability to protect the current no name. During the confrontation with the Demon King, Letitia remembered that when Wu-Ming's original body fought against the Demon King, the power produced even affected the Demon King's gift competition. But because Wu-Ming's original body was always asleep, Letitia's community ended up becoming no name. However, due to the influence of the previous battle, the enemies were more interested in the treasures hidden in this land. If it weren't for the fact that Letitia still remembered the enemy's panicked look, she would have thought that they were here because of Wu-Ming's main body. In short, Letitia believed that as the soul of the powerful existence under the land, Wu-Ming had the ability to protect no name. Chapter 586. As you can see, I am the soul, and that is the body. Because I fought with a powerful enemy, the two were separated, and the body was lost in this world. Wu-Ming patiently explained to Letitia. My first task is to find my body and pursue that enemy. In other words, I can't stay in no name for long, so I can't protect no name according to your request. However, Wu-Ming's words had a big impact on Letitia. Wu-Ming fought with an enemy outside the world, and his body was lost in the box court. This was the feeling of a super powerhouse. And Reverse 16 Knights, who chose to be a listener, looked at Wu-Ming with a burning gaze. Don't get me wrong, it was a gaze full of fighting intent. But being stared at by a man with a burning gaze made Wu-Ming quite uncomfortable. However, if it's at the cost of yourself, I can fulfill your wish. Directly ignoring Reverse 16 Knight's gaze, Wu-Ming whispered in Letitia's ear like a demon. Wu-Ming was not idle in the underground library of no name yesterday. Wu-Ming found something related to vampires. The sky in each area of the box court had a layer of curtain that could allow creatures unable to live under the sun to live normally, and the first such creature to bear the brunt was vampires. Therefore, vampires who came to the box court began to spontaneously maintain the stability of the box court. Therefore, vampires in the box court were called the knights of the box court. Wu-Ming could see that Letitia's strength was not weak, but for some reason, she lost her power. If Letitia regained her strength, Wu-Ming could enhance Letitia's strength, and protect, no name would not be a problem. As for the enemies that Letitia was worried about, Wu-Ming naturally thought of them. However, those who dared to touch the body of the root dragon, whether they could withstand the wrath of the root dragon and survive was still a question. I understand. Letitia was stunned. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and nodded with a red face. However, Wu-Ming saw all of this, and Wu-Ming was willing to bet that Letitia must have misunderstood. Oh, little bro, you finally can't help but make a move on this golden-haired lowly. 16 Knights reverse fanned the flames as he saw that Lu Huai was not meddling in other people's business. This guy definitely understood that what Wu-Ming said was completely different from what Letitia was thinking. If you have nothing better to do, go and meet up with Black Rabbit and the others. You should be satisfied after hearing so many things that others don't know. Wu-Ming waved his hand at reverse 16 Knights in disdain. No problem. Then, as the price, if you have the chance, you must have a good fight with me. 16 Knights didn't care whether Wu-Ming agreed or not. He laughed wildly and ran away. This guy actually didn't cause any trouble this time. Wu-Ming looked at 16 Knights reverse 16 Knights who disappeared into the woods in surprise. Although Wu-Ming had just met 16 Knights reverse 16 Knights, Wu-Ming thought that he already knew 16 Knights reverse 16 Knights very well. He was a proper problem child. However, although 16 Knights reverse 16 Knights was a problem child, he followed Wu-Ming's wishes this time. He didn't get ready to fight with Wu-Ming after hearing the conversation between Wu-Ming and Letitia. He also listened to Wu-Ming's words and went to meet up with Black Rabbit and the others. Although 16 Knights reverse 16 Knights unilaterally made an agreement with Wu-Ming, this was already very good. Then. Do you like this body type or the body type of an adult? I can change into it. Letitia said as she started to take off her clothes with a red face. Wait a moment. Wu-Ming looked helpless. Wu-Ming quickly put his hand on Letitia's half-taken-off red jacket. However, at this moment, in Wu-Ming's perception, a person came here at an extremely fast speed. Mr. Villo, Mr. 16 Knights reverse 16 Knights said you asked me to come over. Black Rabbit bounced over and said naturally. However, Black Rabbit noticed Letitia who was beside Wu-Ming. Sigh. Senior Letitia, why are you here? Then, Black Rabbit suddenly realized that Wu-Ming and Letitia's current state was a bit off. Wu-Ming's hand was placed on Letitia's half-taken-off red jacket. Letitia's face blushed as if she wanted to reject it. Black Rabbit, who had been instilled with evil thoughts by White Yiksha, immediately understood at this moment. You too. Don't tell me. Ah. Then, Black Rabbit suddenly jumped away with a red face. At the same time, Black Rabbit's shy shouts echoed throughout the manor. After helping Letitia put on the red jacket, Wu-Ming had an expression of admitting defeat. I knew 16 Knights wouldn't be that obedient. A moment later, in the living room of No Name's base. Black Rabbit and Letitia sat on the bench in the middle. Wu-Ming and Zhou Yuanfei sat on the side facing each other. In other words, Mr. Villo and Senior Letitia don't have the kind of relationship that Black Rabbit thought. Is this just a misunderstanding? Black Rabbit who sat beside Letitia sighed. After all this time, she was the one who got it wrong. Letitia's face was also red and she didn't say anything. After all, she was the one who got it wrong in the beginning. So, Miss Zhou Yuanfei, can you take back that perverted gaze? Wu-Ming looked at Zhou Yuanfei who sat across from him helplessly. Humph. Although it was a misunderstanding, for Zhou Yuanfei who came from the world just after World War II, Wu-ming and Letitia's interaction about clothes was rude enough. Wu-ming could only shrug his shoulders helplessly. When Black Rabbit's scream resounded in the manor, the rest of No Name began to rush over. Wu-ming also took advantage of this time to explain to Letitia. This caused Letitia's face to turn red once again. When the members of No Name rushed over, only Black Rabbit's face was flushed red. Wu-ming and Letitia, on the other hand, had calm expressions. However, Letitia's cheeks were still slightly rosy. Rinha Haruai and Zhou Yuanfei didn't understand the situation, but Black Rabbit and 16 Knights knew what happened. It should be that the mastermind behind the scenes, 16 Knights, must know what happened. I say, little brother, you didn't really make a move on this blonde loli, did you? This was what 16 Knights, who was still watching the fun and making a big deal out of it, said. This made Rinha Haruai and Zhou Yuanfei very interested. However, because the follow-up matters of Forsgaro needed to be dealt with by White Yiksha, Rinha Haruai and 16 Knights went to deal with it. Zhou Yuanfei, Black Rabbit, Letitia, and Wu-ming returned to No Name's base. Then, Wu-ming told Zhou Yuanfei and Black Rabbit what happened. In addition to Letitia's testimony, Zhou Yuanfei and Black Rabbit didn't have any misunderstandings. On the other hand, Letitia, who was Wu-ming's witness, blushed. However, that was because Letitia had misunderstood Wu-ming's meaning. But at this moment, Black Rabbit, who was hugging Letitia, was very happy. To think that you're Letitia-senpai again, Black Rabbit really missed you. Looking at Black Rabbit, who was like a child, Letitia's heart returned to 3 years ago. You've matured a lot, Black Rabbit. After all, in the past 3 years, the community relied on Rinha and Black Rabbit's meager income to barely survive. How could she not mature? Of course, when Letitia said matured, she was hinting at Black Rabbit's unhappiness by constantly squeezing her own fat in front of her chest. But after thinking about Wu-ming's suggestion, Letitia's face showed a trace of sadness. Although Vilo-sama's suggestion is good, but right now, I have no choice. Letitia's words made Black Rabbit stunned, then she had a helpless expression. Black Rabbit, do you know some recent news about Letitia? Wu-ming asked. Black Rabbit nodded. According to the recent news, Letitia-senpai will be given out as the prize of the gift competition. Then it's as we wish. As long as we participate in the gift competition and win, it'll be fine. Zhou Yuanfei said elegantly and calmly as if she had already won. But Wu-ming didn't think that it would be so simple. I'm afraid this method won't work. Along with this sentence, the room door was pushed open. Rinha, 16 Knights, and Kasuga Hiroyuki, who were responsible for dealing with the aftermath of Forsgaro, returned. Chapter 587. Did something happen to Letitia's gift competition? Wu-ming looked at 16 Knights who spoke before. 16 Knights put her hands in her pockets and walked to a single chair. She sat down and smiled casually. Let's leave the details to the little guy. Ren nodded as he found an empty single chair and sat down. Haruai Hiroyuki walked over to Black Rabbit and Letitia and sat down. In the beginning, Haruai Hiroyuki also knew Letitia's identity in the manor, so he didn't have any doubts. Then, Ren began to explain about Letitia. Let's talk about the Forsgaro first. According to the order of events, Ren began to explain. We found evidence in the Forsgaro's territory. After Lord Byakuya saw the evidence, he was very angry at Guard's actions and said that he would severely punish Forsgaro. Then, Haruai Hiroyuki added. According to Byakuya, Guard's spirit will be removed and sold as food. It's his own fault. It had to be said that this result was really satisfying. The spirit mentioned here was actually similar to the divine spark. It was a tool that could increase the level of one's own species. However, compared to the divine spark, the spirit was not so exaggerated. It was only a partial increase. It was similar to the two definitions of the enhanced version and the degraded version. Then, we asked Byakuya about Letitia's matter. Although No Name did have its name, flag, and companions taken by the Demon King, Ren and Black Rabbit still tried very hard to get them back, just like Letitia. In fact, Ren and Black Rabbit already knew Letitia's whereabouts. For some reason, Letitia ended up in a community under the banner of This and Yes. She was also taken out as a prize in the recent gift competition and placed on the table. Then, Ren looked at Letitia with some guilt. Black Rabbit, who was sitting next to Letitia, also lowered her head. After all, her former companions were now used as a prize in the gift competition, but she couldn't do anything about it. That kind of guilt and pain was not something that others could understand. Black Rabbit and Ren, you two don't have to feel guilty. After all, there's nothing we can do about it. Letitia smiled and comforted the two. However, after some thought, the Black Rabbit revealed a smile again. But now that we have a new companion, we will definitely be able to win Senior Letitia back in this gift competition. It's not that simple, Black Rabbit. If it was that simple, Letitia wouldn't have talked to Wuming like she was entrusting him to an orphan. 16th Knights wouldn't have said no to Ancient Flying Bird's method, and Ren wouldn't have looked so miserable since he came in. All of this proved that there was a problem with Letitia's gift contest. Then, Wuming's words were like a bucket of cold water splashed on the Black Rabbit's head. If my guess is correct, the community that took Letitia out as the prize for the bestowment competition has made a decision. Even if it means tarnishing their own community's reputation, they have to forcefully retract their decision to use Letitia as the prize. This sentence caused Black Rabbit's pupils to shrink. How can that be? The community's reputation is extremely important. Black Rabbit said in disbelief. In this world, the reason why the community's name and flag were so important was because these two were the community's signboard. If the shop's signboard was broken, then the shop would be in a slump. Wuming saw this in the underground library. After the bestowment competition was announced, the content could not be changed at will, including the prize. Unless it was a special situation that everyone agreed on, or the organizer was thick-skinned and forcefully repented. However, if that was the case, the community's reputation would be tarnished. No community was willing to cooperate with a community that didn't keep its word. This was especially reflected in this box world. Ren's next words also proved that Wuming was right. Black Rabbit, Mr. Villo is right. According to Lord White Yiksha, the other party is willing to tarnish their own community's reputation to take back Letitia. Ren's face was gloomy. Before, they didn't have the power to save their companion. Now that they had the power, they couldn't save their companion. They obtained hope in despair, but before they could enjoy the joy of hope, they fell into despair once again. Although it wasn't that serious, Ren's heart was currently suffering from the pain of such a strong difference. This was too heavy for an 11-year-old youth who took on the role of a leader. Then what's the reason? The other party has to have a reason to take back Letitia. It couldn't be that the other party suddenly said that they didn't want to take Letitia as a prize and then took her back. If the other party really spoke like a child, who knew how angry Yasha, the leader of Thous and Yes, would be. The bestowment competition organized by the community was like a country holding a conference. Then, when all the other countries were present, the other party suddenly said that they were canceling. Fortunately, the other contestants were from the lower levels of the box, or else the community they belonged to would definitely find trouble with this community. I heard from Lord White Yiksha that someone from outside the box offered a high price to buy this blonde lowly. 16th Knight spread out his hands. What? Outside the box, Senior Letitia is a vampire. If she's sold outside the box, she won't be able to survive under the sun. Hei Tu stood up excitedly. Although the box was also the name of this world, in reality, the box was just a large city that covered almost the entire world. As long as there was an area with a curtain like a shed, it was the box. Since that was the case, the area that wasn't covered by the curtain was the area outside the box. Everyone knew that vampires were afraid of the sun. The vampires in the box world were also what normal people thought. Moreover, as a purebred vampire, Letitia was even more afraid of the sun. In short, if Letitia was sold outside the box, without the protection of the box's curtain, then Letitia would be doomed. If an analogy had to be made, Letitia outside the box, even if she didn't die, she would lose a layer of skin, and it would be the kind that would keep shedding. At that time, perhaps death would become a relief. Letitia silently pulled on Hey-Tu's arm, indicating for Hey-Tu to calm down. As expected, in the face of benefits, the other party directly chose to sacrifice the community's reputation. The leader of this community wouldn't be some rich second-generation character, right? Wu Ming ridiculed rather unhappily. Letitia, you actually already knew about this, right? Wu Ming looked at Letitia. I indeed knew before leaving that cage. Letitia seemed to have accepted her fate as she nodded expressionlessly. It was because Letitia knew that she was about to be sold that she sacrificed a seemingly large price in exchange for the right to temporarily move before leaving the box. It was all to see the result of no name. The people here weren't idiots. If she didn't pay a price, as an item, how could Letitia be allowed to move freely? It was also because Letitia knew that she was about to be sold that she didn't feel at ease with no name and wanted to test the newcomer. It was also because Letitia knew that she was about to be sold, and when she realized that Wu Ming was an extremely powerful existence, Letitia racked her brains to ask Wu Ming for help. It was also because Letitia knew that she was about to be sold, and when she misunderstood Wu Ming's words of using herself as the price, Letitia unhesitatingly prepared to give herself to Wu Ming. Everything was for this once home, a home that she would never see again. It could be said that Letitia was simply like an idiot. For this home, she practically gave up everything. However, a lot of people often liked this kind of idiot. Then, do you want to consider my proposal? Wu Ming very calmly looked at Letitia. Two pairs of red eyes looked at each other, just like when they first met. Chapter 588. However, Wu Ming's words confused everyone present. As the person involved, Letitia understood what Wu Ming meant. After all, Wu Ming had already told her what he meant. But even so, Letitia still shook her head helplessly. But, Master Villo, I'll be sold out of the box soon. Moreover, I've also lost my divinity. I really can't become the guardian of no name like you said. What? Senior Letitia, you've lost your divinity. After hearing Letitia's words, Black Rabbit was shocked and his hair slightly changed color. Yes, that's right. I use my divinity as the price in exchange for a period of time where I can move freely. After all, as an item, the only price that Letitia could pay was her most precious thing, her divinity, which was worth this price. And because of this, Letitia's strength was greatly reduced. Wu Ming estimated that Letitia's current strength was probably less than 1/10 of her original strength. Although Wu Ming still didn't understand the division of strength in the box, according to Wu Ming's estimation, Letitia's current strength had fallen to the bottom of the 5-digit range, close to the 6-digit range. Senior Letitia. Realizing the price that Letitia paid, Black Rabbit's eyes began to moisten and his voice began to choke. It had to be said that the price was a bit too high. However, Wu Ming still asked Letitia. Putting aside the current disadvantages, Letitia, let me ask you, do you accept my proposal? I accept. Letitia nodded. Although she didn't understand Wu Ming's meaning, she could only honestly say her true thoughts at this moment. Wu Ming smiled, and 16 knights who saw through Wu Ming's thoughts also smiled. Then everyone, let's go negotiate with the other party. Knight, 21053880 Outer Gate, Thous and Yes, Branch. White Yiksha used a paper fan to cover the lower half of his face and looked with interest at Wu Ming, 16 Knights, Black Rabbit, and the leader of the community, Ren, sitting in front of him. It's really rare to visit at this time. Do you and No Name have something to ask of us? Although it was a question, White Yiksha, who asked it in a declarative tone, undoubtedly knew the thoughts of No Name. Let's get straight to the point, White Yiksha. Can you help us contact the leader of the community where Letitia is currently at? Wu Ming said bluntly. This made Ren tremble in fear. After all, the other party was the star spirit of Tai Yang and Bai Yi, the current ruler of the hierarchy, White Yiksha. Shouldn't he be more polite when speaking? However, White Yiksha was not a person who would stick to trifles. He did not mind Wu Ming's words. To be honest, I don't want to see the guy who violated the agreement and brought shame to thousand yes. From the looks of it, White Yiksha also knew that the other party had cancelled the gift competition with Letitia as the prize. However, Wu Ming wasn't surprised by White Yiksha's reaction. No matter what, the other party was still a community under the banner of thousand yes. Just the fact that they cancelled the gift competition because they wanted to take back the prize made thousand yes feel a lot of shame. After all, even if it was the other party's responsibility, the other party was still a community under the banner of thousand yes. It was also because of this that White Yiksha had a disgusted expression. But since Black Rabbit is here, I'll kindly tell you. White Yiksha stared at Black Rabbit's full chest and smiled slyly. This made Black Rabbit hug her chest uncomfortably. However, Wu Ming once again realized that finding White Yiksha with Black Rabbit was as useful as getting a pass. I don't know when you found out about it. I found out this morning. White Yiksha began to explain. The community that held the ownership of Letitia was called Perseus. It was a mid-level 5-digit community. The leader of the community was Luos Perseus. According to White Yiksha, he was a vulgar hedonist with a rough personality. Moreover, according to White Yiksha, the other party had been coveting the aristocrats of the box court for a long time but never had the chance. Ahem, please get to the point, Lord White Yiksha. Wu Ming coughed and slightly emphasized the word Lord. Ahem. In short, the other party's leader came to me today and said that he wanted to cancel the gift competition with Letitia. This made me angry for a while. It had to be said that White Yiksha was really responsible. As a cadre of thousand yes, White Yiksha was furious that Perseus had damaged thousand yes reputation. However, White Yiksha's anger was of no use. Perseus was willing to pay double the compensation and use some special methods to make the scheduled contestants give up the competition. Although these methods were indeed special, in a situation where it wasn't a gift competition and there was no evidence, even White Yiksha, a leader of the hierarchy, couldn't do anything about it. The box court world was extremely free, but in some ways, it also had unparalleled restrictions. In this box court world, sometimes legal procedures were more useful than anything else. After all, the box court system was an invincible existence. In the box court world, one had to follow the box court game to live. This was set by all the gods and Buddhas who first created the box court. No one could change it. Breaking the contract and cancelling the gift competition only required the payment of the penalty and the agreement of the scheduled contestants. Of course, there was also the invisible damage to the community's reputation. But the other party didn't make any contact with us. Ren frowned. Although Wu Ming, 16 Knights, and the other two didn't join No Name when they signed up for the competition, even if No Name wasn't strong enough, they still had to try. Letitia was worried about No Name, and everyone in No Name was also worried about Letitia. Even if they knew they would fail, even if they weren't strong enough, No Name would definitely participate in this gift competition. Because in No Name's view, this wasn't a normal gift competition, but a battle to take back the only partner they had seen in 3 years. The reason why Black Rabbit summoned 16 knights and the others at this time was also to replenish their combat power. But in the end, who would have thought that the other party would cancel the gift competition without the consent of all the scheduled contestants? After hearing Ren's words, White Yiksha had an "I knew it" expression. I thought so too. Let's not talk about the fact that it's impossible for Luos to contact you. Even if he did contact you and asked you to give up, you would never give up. Only when it came to their companions, No Name would never give up. But I think that Luos probably thought that No Name didn't need to be notified and made the decision on his own. Wu Ming said without thinking. But no one refuted this sentence. After all, although it was cruel, No Name without a name was indeed often looked down upon by other communities. Then, based on this point, White Yiksha, can you let the other party come over for a discussion? 16 knights asked. We're begging you, Lord White Yiksha. Please help us. Black Rabbit also had a pleading attitude. Please. Ren also bowed to White Yiksha. At this time, White Yiksha smiled and revealed an expression that said, I've been waiting for you for a long time. We already guessed your request. When you first arrived here, we notified Luos. Now, he should be here. At this time, a frivolous man's voice entered everyone's ears. Oh, isn't this you too? It really felt like speaking of the devil. A young man with gold and black hair, a collar around his neck, and boots walked in. He looked like a rich second-generation young master. This guy should be Luos. Everyone looked at the rich second-generation young master who walked in and developed feelings of disgust. Even Wu Ming had to admit that this guy was an annoying existence. It was as if he had a taunting aura around him. As expected, there is you Tuesday otherwise, my meaningless journey would have been wasted, Luos said casually. He said it as if Black Rabbit was already in his bag. Alright, Luos. Regarding the matter of you cancelling the gift competition without the consent of No Name, we have to start the discussion. Please show some of the temperament a leader should have. Ha! Discussion. What kind of joke are you making? If it wasn't for you two, why would I come here to discuss with a mere No Name? Luos looked at Wu Ming and the others mockingly, then complained to White Yiksha. However, he did not notice the coldness that flashed across Wu Ming's eyes. Chapter 589. Hey, you guys want that vampire, right? I'm very reasonable. Just give me Moon Rabbit in exchange. Luos had an expression that said, I'm very tolerant, you guys better be sensible. Immediately after, Luos looked at Black Rabbit with a lecherous expression. Please allow me to refuse. Black Rabbit covered her exposed skin with her hands and had an expression that said she would rather die than submit. You're really despicable. Black Rabbit is our No Name's exclusive bunny girl. No one else has the right to have her. 16 knights had an expression of righteous indignation. That's right, Black Rabbit's No Name exclusive bunny, no. Wait a minute. Black Rabbit isn't a bunny girl. Black Rabbit, who had been abducted, repeated 16th knight's words. Halfway through, it reacted and refuted 16th knight. Mr. 16 Knights is a big idiot. As she spoke, Black Rabbit took out a paper fan and hit 16 Knights' head. However, Luos was amused by this. Ha ha ha. I can only say that as expected of a No Name. If you guys act as comedians, I might reward the two of you. Luos looked at Wu Ming and the others as if they were clowns. Then I really have to thank you. 16 Knights wasn't angry. Instead, he smiled and responded. Enough fooling around. Wu Ming interrupted Luos and 16 Knights. Mr. Luos, right? I would like to ask, who wants to buy Letitia? If possible, please tell me the price. Wu Ming looked at Luos with a serious and kind tone. That won't do. Luo shrugged his shoulders with an arrogant and helpless look. I have to protect the privacy of my customers. How can I casually reveal my customers' information? However, the words protect the privacy of my customers did not appear on Luo's, who didn't keep his words. Instead, it was very ironic. However, from Wuming's point of view, Luo said this on purpose. Oh, to put it simply, you think that no name is easy to bully, so you're deliberately making things difficult for us. Wuming said bluntly. Even so, Wuming's tone was still very kind. Coupled with this sentence, it gave people the feeling that he was admitting defeat. Mr. Villo. Rinha and Black Rabbit looked at Wuming in surprise. Of course, they were not surprised by Wuming's cowardice, but by Wuming's straightforward words. After all, this discussion was only a discussion in name. Was it really appropriate to speak the truth so bluntly? Although this kind of feeling of admitting defeat was also quite disturbing. When Renhe Black Rabbit opened his mouth to speak, 16 Knights stretched out his hand and blocked Renhe Black Rabbit, indicating that the two should not speak. However, 16 Knights didn't admit defeat. He knew that Wuming already had a plan. Don't be fooled by 16 Knights and lose happy conversation before, but the cold glint in 16 Knights' eyes proved his inner thoughts. Don't be fooled by rebellious 16 Knights' usual sloppy appearance. Rebellious 16 Knights had deep feelings for this new home of No Name. Wuming once asked 16 Knights why he joined No Name. I won't let go of the chance to fight with Lord Demon King. I'm someone who will be moved by the truth. That was what 16 Knights told Wuming at the time. Because it was exciting to fight with the Demon King, he was moved and joined No Name. But from Wuming's point of view, rebellious 16 Knights joined No Name not only because he could fight with the Demon King, but also because he was moved by the truth. For the sake of a No Name, Black Rabbit had been constantly running around for the past 3 years, trying his best to maintain No Name. He even sold his body to White Yiksha. Don't think too much. It was just that White Yiksha said that if Black Rabbit wore the clothes she provided, Black Rabbit's reward as a referee would increase. Ren also took on the responsibility of a community leader at the age of 11, when he should have grown up under the protection of his parents, for the sake of No Name. Rebellious 16 Knights also faced this feeling of being moved by the truth. Therefore, rebellious 16 Knights was a faked tsundere, cough cough. In short, if it involved the issue of companions, whoever dared to touch his companions, he would make that person pay the price, the kind that would be worse than death. On this point, Wuming was the same. Ah, that's right, it's just No Name. Even if you are the scheduled participants, I don't need to ask for your consent to cancel the gift competition, because you are really too insignificant. Luo said arrogantly, ignoring White Yiksha's impatient gaze. Pay attention to your words, kid. Even if No Name is a community without a name, the other party is still a community. It's not reasonable for you to cancel the gift competition without the consent of all the communities. That's why I came to meet with No Name to discuss. Luo's acted like he had taken advantage of Renbaqian. Didn't I say that as long as it's you two, No Name will do without participating in the gift competition and directly get the prize? Then, Luo's looked at Black Rabbit. And you two is an existence that is willing to sacrifice herself for others. Isn't this a very good suggestion? When Luo said this, Black Rabbit began to hesitate. Luo's was right. You two had the nature of sacrificing herself for others. It could be seen from the fact that Black Rabbit had been constantly working for No Name for the past 3 years. Although No Name had once helped Black Rabbit, what was more important was the dedication of the U2 clan. Just as Luo's looked at Black Rabbit lecherously and Black Rabbit began to hesitate, Wuming suddenly opened his mouth. And it was a violent tone that was the complete opposite of the kind tone from before. It's about time to shut up, Lord Perseus' second-generation ancestor. Wuming, who raised his voice by a few decibels, made Luos tremble and jump in fright. Rinha Black Rabbit was also shocked, but the focus of everyone's attention was not on Rinha Black Rabbit, but on Luos and Wuming. When White Yiksha saw that Luos was frightened, he began to look at Luos as if he was a piece of trash. Feeling White Yiksha's gaze, Luos felt embarrassed. However, White Yiksha was an existence that he could not afford to offend, so he could only vent his anger on No Name, who provoked him and could afford to provoke him. It's just No Name. Do you think you're the only ones with a loud voice? Luos shouted angrily. I'm sorry for being loud. I just didn't expect the leader of Perseus to be so cowardly. Wuming apologized with a mocking expression. Wuming's words and his mocking status made Luos angry. However, Luos smiled. I know, you're purposely provoking me so that I can continue with the gift competition. Then, Luos continued to speak arrogantly. I've already seen through your plan, No Name! But Wuming also laughed. Are you really the descendant of that hero? You self-righteous idiot. Chapter 590. Ha! What do you mean? Luos frowned and looked at Wuming. Although Luos was a rich second generation who only cared about eating, drinking and having fun, he was still very proud of his bloodline. Wuming's words caused Luos's anger to increase by another notch. Isn't this very obvious? Wuming purposely put on a very helpless face. Why would you think that if I angered you, I would let you continue with the bestowment competition? These two are completely unrelated. I'm just telling the truth. You were really shocked just now, weren't you? Wuming's words made Luos unable to refute. He was indeed shocked. This point was seen by everyone present, including White Yiksha, who had always looked down on Luos. Furthermore, my suspicions of whether you are the descendant of the hero Perseus were not wrong. Luos' community name was Perseus, which was Perseus, the hero who killed the snake-haired demon Medusa. Since he dared to use Perseus as his name, then the first leader of this community should be that hero. In the box courtyard world, it was common for heroes in myths and legends to come to the box courtyard. After many heroes completed their deeds, they would be summoned to the box courtyard. This was what Wuming saw when he was reading the history books of the box courtyard in the underground library of No Name. After Perseus died, he ascended to the immortal constellation mountain. At the same time, he was summoned to the box courtyard and started his story again. This was considered the creation of the community of Perseus. Therefore, every generation of leaders of Perseus was the direct descendant of Perseus. Therefore, Wuming's suspicions towards Luos should not be suspected of Luos. But who asked Luos to be a rich second generation? He did not have the demeanor of his ancestor at all. I heard that Perseus is a 5-digit community, but you want to move to a 6-digit community. You are really a rich second generation who ruined your ancestors' business. Then, Wuming continued to taunt, or rather, insult. A spoiled brat like you who doesn't think about improving himself and only knows how to eat, drink, and play, I'm afraid you've already used up all the treasures left behind by Perseus. Wuming wasn't wrong. Perseus left behind many treasures for Perseus, but when it reached Luos' generation, other than the scythe sword, invisibility helmet, flying boots and other incomparably important treasures of Perseus, the other treasures were basically consumed by Luos. How was it consumed? Of course, it was for Luos to enjoy himself. This was also why Luos wanted to move the Perseus from the 5-digit middle tier to the 6-digit lower tier. Because they no longer had the qualifications and strength to stay in the middle class. No Name is giving you face by participating in your gift competition. It's fine if you have a grateful look, but who are you trying to show your arrogance to? I have seen Perseus before. Although he also has an annoying look, compared to you, he's still far behind. Ignoring everyone's surprise at Wuming saying that he had seen Perseus before, Wuming acted as if he had discovered something. Ayaya, you see, I'm really rude. Doesn't this mean that you are really the descendant of the hero Perseus? That's great. At least you are not a bastard that came out of nowhere. Otherwise, I would really have to mourn for Perseus. Everyone was dumbfounded. Who would have thought that Wuming, who was considered steady among the problematic children of 16 Knights, would be so special. However, Wuming didn't stop. But compared to this, isn't it more proof that you are the descendant of Perseus? You have ruined this bloodline. As expected, you have to be careful. I think you should directly move the community to 7 digits. Otherwise, you will be in trouble if you provoke someone you shouldn't. Oh right. Wuming acted as if he had good intentions. Our 2105380 outer door is quite spacious. Do you want to squeeze in with us? Seeing that you are Perseus, we, no name, will take care of you. Shut up. From the beginning when Wuming insulted Luos was already slightly angry. The more Wuming said, the angrier Luos became. In the end, the veins on his head popped out. With a roar, Luos took out his gift card and took out a sickle-shaped sword. He slashed down at Wuming's head. That should be the legendary weapon against immortality, the scythe sword harp. Be careful. Ren and the Black Rabbit were shocked. As a god relic, it could already cause harm to White Yiksha. Naturally, this weapon could also cause harm to Wuming. However, 16 Knights and White Yiksha were unfazed. Luos and the rest's indulgence had weakened his ability by a lot. One could say that if it weren't for Perseus' gift card, Luos would not have been able to stay in the 5 digits. He would have been pushed down to the 6 digits long ago. White Yiksha and 16 Knights did not think that Luos could hurt Wuming. Both of them wanted to take the opportunity to see Wuming's ability. However, it was true that Luos could not hurt Wuming. It was just that both of them were surprised by Wuming's defense against Luos' attack. Both of them thought that Wuming might dodge or block Luos' attack. However, they never thought that Wuming would be able to control Luos without moving his body at all. That was right. He was controlled. At that moment, Harp was less than a centimeter away from Wuming's head. One could say that if Wuming moved a little, Harp would slash him. However, Luos' body did not move at all at that moment. What? What's happening? What did you do? Luos said in a panic. Although his body could not move, Luos could still move his mouth. You bastard. What did you do to me? Luos was really panicking. After all, anyone who was controlled by such an inexplicable method would also be panicking. Hey. You're the descendant of a hero. Don't panic, alright? Wuming shrugged helplessly. Oh. Is this your telekinesis? I didn't expect it to reach such a level. White Yiksha opened his paper fan and smiled. It could only be said that White Yiksha was indeed the strongest star spirit. He could see the essence of Wuming's power at a glance. After all, I'm also a spirit. It's only natural that I have strong mental strength. Wuming smiled. What controlled Luos was the telekinesis formed from pure mental strength. Wuming completely attached his telekinesis to Luos' body. As a result, the telekinesis that was many times stronger than Luos had firmly locked him in place. It was as if he was frozen by an invisible ice block. Moreover, it was an ice block that was 10,000 years old. What? Telekinesis. How can such a weak power control me? Luos roared angrily and began to struggle free from Wuming's telekinesis. However, it was useless. Luos still couldn't move. He couldn't even tremble slightly. Luos was completely suppressed by Wuming's telekinesis. Don't waste your energy. I even controlled the giant god to float in the sky for fun. You're just a spoiled brat who has been spoiled by eating, drinking, and having fun. How can you break free? Wu Ming mocked. Then, Wu Ming took Heful from Luo's hand and examined it in his hand. It's indeed a good artifact. If I didn't already have Heful, I'm afraid this would be mine. However, Black Rabbit couldn't help but complain. I feel that Mr. Villo is more mysterious than we thought. How can that be? I'm just a somewhat special spirit. Then, Wu Ming smiled. However, this smile was like a demon in Luo's eyes. Putting the scythe aside, Wu Ming snapped his fingers. Paw-dash, in an instant, a piece of parchment appeared in Wu Ming's hand out of thin air. Then, under the witness of Lord White Yiksha, the ruler of the hierarchy, Lord Luos, please sign this document. Then, under Luo's horrified gaze, Luos pressed his fingerprint on this unknown document. Chapter 591. After controlling Luos like a marionette, Wu Ming removed his control over Luos. You despicable bastard. Luos was just about to explode in anger when a terrifying gaze locked onto him. Wu Ming's ruby-like pupils had turned into vertical slits. The pressure that was precisely controlled by Wu Ming pressed down on Luos as though it was aimed at him. I just don't want to bully you too much. If you're not afraid of death, you can try. Or you can take out the star spirit on your neck. Wu Ming glanced at the necklace with a snake-haired banshee's head on Luo's neck and continued. The prerequisite is that you're prepared to die. At that moment, Luos felt like he was looking at a terrifying giant dragon. Pure blood. Dragon species. Luo's body trembled as he muttered involuntarily. Hearing this, White Yiksha squinted his eyes and looked at Wu Ming with interest. This made Wu Ming shrug his shoulders helplessly. Then, Wu Ming smiled at Luos. All right, Master Luos, you can return to your community. Of course, the Letitia gift competition will continue tomorrow. You know what I mean, right? Wu Ming smiled and waved the parchment with Luo's handprint in front of Luos. Instantly, Luos seemed to have thought of something and his face turned into the color of pig liver. In the end, Luos left without saying a word. He left helplessly as if he was dead. When Luos pressed his handprint, Wu Ming purposely slowed down to allow Luos to see what was on the parchment. At that moment, Luos fully understood what kind of existence he had provoked. He was completely done for. Speaking of which, what is the content of the document that Mr. Villo made Luos sign? Black Rabbit asked excitedly. However, White Yiksha, who was interested in Wu Ming's tricks, directly extended his hand. Quick, kid, let me take a look, White Yiksha said as he instantly snatched the parchment from Wu Ming's hand. Everyone gathered around White Yiksha and read the contents on the parchment together. Bestowed game name, ownership of Perseus, contestant, Luos Pathos contestant's winning condition, remain calm and not feel fear in the face of the host's coercion. Winning condition, the contestant cannot meet the winning condition. Oath, respecting the above content, based on the glory, flag, and authority of the organizer, this game of blessings will be held. Seal of Originate God. Ah! Renhe, Black Rabbit, and even White Yiksha were all shocked. Their screams made Wu Ming and 16 knights, who were behind them, take a step back. What's wrong with you guys? Wu Ming scratched his ears and shook his head, which was shocked by the sound of surprise, with a helpless look on his face. Wait. Mr. Villo, is this the authority of the organizer? Black Rabbit looked excited. Wu Ming nodded honestly. It is the authority of the organizer, but why are you guys so excited? But, Mr. Villo, that is the highest authority that very few people can hold. Ren didn't know what to say. Even we are a little out of place. Speaking of which, when did thou obtain the authority of the organizer? White Yiksha used a paper fan to cover the lower half of his face to hide his gaffe. I don't know the exact time. If I have to say, it should be before I came here, Wu Ming thought. Or rather, it was when he was at the no-name base. In No Name's base, I suddenly realized that I had gained a new ability. This ability allowed me to force people to participate in my bestowment competition. Wu-ming looked at everyone. If not for that, Wu-ming wouldn't have chosen to negotiate with Luos directly. In other words, Wu-ming had already decided that if the leader of Perseus was a decent person, then Wu-ming would try to negotiate with him on the issue of Letitia. And if the other party was an annoying fellow, then sorry, Wu-ming would deal with him directly. After the initial meeting and brief discussion with Luos, Wu-ming chose the latter. It could only be said that this second generation was too unlucky. Being arrogant and despotic for a long time made him forget his respect for the strong. Even in front of White Yiksha, he was arrogant, not to mention the no name that had no name and flag. However, no one had ever told him that even in no name, there were strong people. Omega and this second generation just happened to bump into Wu-ming's gun. After speaking rudely to Wu-ming out of anger, Wu-ming used his coercion to target him. And ever since Luos pressed down his handprint, he had already begun his bestowment competition with Wu-ming. After developing a fear of Wu-ming, this guy's community, Perseus, no longer belonged to him, but to the victor, Wu-ming. This once again showed that Luos had lost his respect for the strong because of eating, drinking, and having fun for a long time. If he still knew respect, then he wouldn't have gotten angry at Wu-ming, who had the authority of the bestowment competition and was clearly a strong person. Wasn't that an act of seeking death? Wu-ming believed that anyone with a little bit of foresight wouldn't have done what Luos did. Instead, they would have faced Wu-ming in a more rational and kind way. After all, he was facing a hot-tempered guy like Luos. If it was someone else, Wu-ming wouldn't have put his courage to the test. However, even if Luos didn't get angry on the spot, Wu-ming wasn't afraid that he wouldn't fall for it because the document didn't have a time limit. In other words, it could continue until Luos became fearful. That was how word games were played. And through the authority of the bestowment competition, Wu-ming also saw the power of this authority. No wonder the Demon King was called a natural disaster. If Wu-ming carried out such a flawed bestowment competition with Perseus, then they definitely wouldn't have a chance of winning. Well, now that I think about it, if a strong person like you obtained the authority of the bestowment competition, then we wouldn't be so surprised. White Yiksha smiled. Speaking of which, just now Luos mentioned a pure-blooded dragon species. Is Mr. Villo a pure-blooded dragon species? Black Rabbit asked excitedly. This made everyone focus their attention on Wu-ming. Other than 16 knights, everyone present knew about the existence of pure-blooded dragon species. Wu-ming's words were also seen in the underground library of No Name. Even in the box court world with many strong people, there were also the existence of the three strongest races: star spirits, natural gods, and pure-blooded dragons. The highest-ranking star spirits of the ghost species, elves, and demons races, the god spirits of natural gods and Buddhas, the pinnacle of phantom beasts, and the pure-blooded dragon species that didn't have the tree of evolution. These three represented the three strongest races in the box court. Among them, the strongest could be said to be the star spirits. This was because the star spirits were the only existence that didn't have much relationship with humans. The other two races were more or less related to humans, and from a certain perspective, it was a fatal relationship. As an example of the star spirits, White Yiksha was the best example. White Yiksha was the star spirit of the sun and white night. The best explanation for natural god spirits was those gods that didn't evolve. A typical natural god spirit was in Greek mythology. Zeus and the others were basically natural gods. As for the pure-blooded dragon species, it was a little strange. The pure-blooded dragon species weren't born, but an existence that appeared out of thin air due to the sudden convergence of a powerful force. It was very suitable for the name fantasy species. Such an existence often looked like a dragon, so it was called the pure-blooded dragon species. The pure-blooded dragon species would only have pure-blooded descendants through single reproduction. Combining with a mutant species would only give birth to a subdragon. Wu Ming had the experience of his eyes turning into vertical pupils. Coupled with Luos's words, everyone couldn't help but suspect Wu Ming's identity. Actually, if I have to say, I'm an existence that's stronger than those things. Wu Ming smiled.